Do 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 do. Do, do, do,
Is this how you're always going to open it now?
I don't know, because they say the first 10 seconds someone can't hear
Ends
them.
up getting, clipped off or whatever.
But here we are. Welcome to the Geeky Geezers. I'm your host, Aged Boomer. It's my co-host, PaPa Pacelli.
Hello.
And here we are. Let's see, what is Rosefire saying here? Good evening, children like music you all make. I like good old, I like Dracula. He's cool. I remember I played a game that had a vampire in it called Transylvania on the Atari 800 computer. More on that later.
Wow.
You might have had Transylvania for the Commodore. It might have come out on that. It was a text adventure game, but it had graphics. That was
I don't think I did, but
it was like an Infocom game, but it actually featured graphics in it. They were rudimentary, but it was kind of cool when you would run in certain areas and like it would look like a clear area, and then suddenly it would etch on the screen and the werewolf was chasing you, and it was right there. It was kind of neat.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, sometimes they would do clever little cut scenes or whatever just to startle you. That's
exactly
well done.
Good evening, gents. Have a great stream. I'll catch you later. Welcome, Chris P. Like I said, you can catch me and mine in his Castlevania talk we did a few weeks back on here. At some point, we'll do a Contra talk when I get the chance and the time. Speaking of guests on the channel, next week, I believe Deleted Scenes will be joining us to talk about the Oscar nominations.
That sounds right to me, yeah.
You excited for the Oscars this year? Actually,
Not
save
at all.
for next week.
I couldn't give a rat's ass about any of these award shows.
Welcome, Nanette. Always good to see you. You can catch on Nanette, Troy, and myself on Deleted Scenes channel this Tuesday for Sparkwood and 21.
Sparkwood and 21.
Yes.
Exactly.
Hello, my friends. Have a good stream tonight. Thank you, Big Al. It was good to see you. Matanui, welcome. Dee Myers, welcome. Zootopia, welcome. Trying to think who else. Speaking of the good old days, I recently rewatched the animated Disney's Aladdin film. The animation is saturated motion action. Jafar and Iago are hilarious and intimidating duo. It was one of the great Disney movies, especially of the, 90s Renaissance. I really did enjoy Aladdin back in the day. And you know what I said? I said as soon as they announced that live action remake, and you know what I said? Are they going to have the dancing girls in it in the animated sequence? Nope.
Of course not.
Not in the genie sequence. Nope. There are no dancing girls. Because why? Because it's modern Disney and they hate men. Anyway, moving on.
Exactly right.
Connie Cleary, welcome. So here we go. Unscripted Raid. Oh yeah, that's right. You can catch Unscripted before this stream. Deleted Scenes was getting a little topical tonight, but you can catch it there. And after midnight, it'll be the other side of midnight, and you can catch Deleted Scenes where he gets to chill out. He's got some good guests on there. I think Pacifica 414 is going to be on there tonight.
Yep. Looking forward to it.
Wait, what if you were the chump husband? I'll admit, she was. I thought, out of all the Disney princesses, I think Jasmine was the one I would want. I don't know. Maybe it was her outfit. Which again, they didn't use that in the movie either. They got rid of that from the movie.
Kind of makes you wonder if the Disney princesses would trade off outfits, for the whole cosplay thing.
Good point. I could see Belle in that costume actually.
Yeah.
Anyway, but no, it's fine.
I've seen some artwork people have done where they put all the Disney princesses in Jasmine's outfit. Or, in their own colors, though, right? And then they'll do, all the Disney princesses dressed like Snow White, but in their own color, so on and so forth. So, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So here we are. And I guess let's go to... I'm tripping over myself. Slideshow. It's like the family slideshow. Our vacation in New Mexico. No, I'm kidding. Here we go. Geeky Geezers. Here's the thumbnail. Poor Troy never gets a lot of credit for these thumbnails because they're so tiny, but he goes a lot of work.
I do actually sometimes I put way too much work into a small little thing, it's it means it's important to me. So sometimes there's little Easter eggs hidden in the thumbnails if you're paying attention.
But yeah, we got a lot of talk tonight. Won't be doing really anything on the Warriors Blu-ray that came out recently, except for me to tell you that the Warriors is out on Blu-ray from Arrow Video, and it includes the revised edition from the early 2000s and the original theatrical cut, which is the one you want.
I was just going to say, I always appreciate when you have that option.
Yeah, I didn't like the fact they only gave me the option of the revised version.
Yeah.
I get what Walter Hill was saying. He wanted, at the time, he wanted to make it look more like a comic book, so they reinserted these little clip scene, like little inserts in deep between scenes, kind of like how the We Creep show had when they would go in like comic book form.
Right.
But it doesn't match the 70s movie. They look too new, so it throws the whole thing off. I don't care that it's on there as a second disc, but just give me the theatrical version. So you can finally get it on Blu-ray and 4K. So depending on which format you like. But look at all that's going on here. Look at all the major science fiction properties represented. We got Star Trek, Star Wars.
And we're pretty much not going to have anything good to say about any of them.
Even Battlestar Galactica, that's the one I'm most interested to hear your take on. We got Riddick coming back, supposedly. So, yeah, I don't know. We got some things, and we got Superman's son and his little friend there. So let's move on to the good old days.
Absolutely. The Honeymooners. I remember the first time I was even aware of the Honeymooners was my grandfather talking about the show and how he would laugh so hard about that show. And he would quote things that at the time I was too young to even understand. You know, it wasn't until years later that I started watching the Honeymooners, and I was like, okay, now I understand what he's getting at, why it was so good, and not realizing all of the cultural references that how many times the Honeymooners is referenced in so many other things you'd seen. So,
the Flintstones.
The Flintstones are literally a cartoon version of the Honeymooners. I mean, it's unquestionable. It's very, very clear. I mean, yeah, he's not a bus driver. Fred Flintstone isn't a bus driver. He works in a quarry. But the point is, he's a blue collar guy. Very similar situation. They don't live in apartment buildings. They're next door neighbors. But you get. It's basically the same story.
You have, and you basically have Art Carney is
kind of like your Barney Rubble, yeah.
Yeah, it was his character's name. Was it Norman?
Norton.
Norton, my mistake.
Right.
And Jackie Gleason as Ralph Cramden there. Look at that.
Right.
And these would be a series of misadventures. I used to watch it religiously as a child. I used to watch it a lot when it was on. In fact, I think Showtime had done a thing called The Honeymooners, The Lost Episodes.
Yeah, I had heard about that.
And
yes.
I don't know if that, and now that I'm older, I thought they just uncovered a bunch of lost episodes, but now that I'm older, I'm wondering, did they actually just reunite the cast and shoot new episodes in black and white?
No, there were actually some episodes that
got lost. Okay.
I'm assuming they must have still aired. But like they were lost in the what do you call it, syndication and eventual home video releases.
I always thought Ralph's wife was too good looking for him, but that was always my impression.
There's a lot of episodes where he seems to imply the same thing.
Yeah.
You do get the impression that for all of his bluster and old fashionedness, he's really insecure.
But yeah, and this was basically, I think this was the sitcom of the 1950s. They were watching it in the movie Back to the Future.
I was just thinking about that, yeah. Because what's crucial is it's a little bit of foreshadowing because they're literally watching that episode, while you're getting some of the backstory at the dinner table, right? And then later on, when he's in the past, he's having dinner with, his grandparents, basically. The same episode comes on. He goes, "Oh, I remember this. I saw this as rerun." "What are you talking about, rerun? This show's airing for the first time tonight." Yeah, establishing the whole time travel thing,
Oh, maybe it's just a date. I forget how he cleared that up.
Yeah.
He
Oh, Rosefire's pointing out the honey mousers, the pastiches and the
I
parodies.
saw that. That was a Looney Tunes cartoon. I think
Mhm.
was aired in theaters, but I guess this the show's popular. And it was the Mouse Family. I remember that.
That
I
makes
saw
sense.
that. Lots of things parodied this. I think that that dinosaurs show that the Jim Henson Company put out
I never thought about that, but
was
yeah,
kind
in
of
a way.
like this in a way.
Yeah.
Maybe not exactly, but
The difference
this
being
was,
they had kids in that one.
yeah. So this was the template, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't, and
And in,
I have to think Perfect Strangers too. Maybe later on, sort of copied this format a little bit too. What do you think? So they were roommates instead of neighbors in that, right? So
see, I kind of see that trope as being more of an odd couple type of pastiche.
maybe that's what it is. Yeah.
Because like Laverne and Shirley also and whatnot. But you could put all of those into this kind of a sitcom concept. What is it? It's a situational comedy. It's a situational comedy that focuses on the life of people that you absolutely can relate to, right? Yeah. This one happens to be two married couples that are neighbors. They were
roommates, and their girlfriends were also roommates of each other too. That's what it was. That's what's throwing me off. Yes, okay.
And also, I would draw a comparison, compare and contrast this show, The Honeymooners, with like I Love Lucy. And again, two couples.
Yeah. I remember
living
I
in
Love
the
Lucy.
same building.
So why has this endured all this time, do you think?
I think that at the time it was uniquely popular. When it hit at just the right time so that it could make it into reruns and syndication. It's right at that time with like I Love Lucy and so forth, where they were starting to look at, we might need to rerun episodes and this and whatnot. It was just so, like I said, my grandfather talking about it so highly that when I saw reruns of it, it hit that touchstone in my mind, and it made me think of my grandfather, and so forth. Plus, there's something to be said for how cheap it is to fill up your airtime with reruns of something. So, when something gets a lot of airtime, it becomes familiar, you start to enjoy it. But there's also very classic jokes, routines that came out of it. The one I was thinking of is, the bit about where I think it was Ralph is trying to learn how to golf, and Norton's trying to help him learn. He's reading from the book. Okay, first thing you do is you address the ball. Hello, ball.
Yes. And then he would get an exasperated expression on his face, right? And says, "Cut it out!"
Exactly. Will you cut that out? And there you go. There's another one that was so common that banter between them, the friendly animosity, right? That they pastiched it with Art Carney's character in the Star Wars Holiday Special, when he's supposed to be, setting up the viewing thing for the Imperial guy, and this and this, and then it was that whole bit with the grabbing a fly and throwing it on the ground, stomping, and will you cut that out? It was literally, a direct parody of a scene from The Honeymooners, and everybody who knew who Art Carney was, not most of the kids watching it at the time, but all the parents and grandparents, they knew exactly what that joke was,
Rosefire says, put characters with distinctly different personalities together in a room and watch them bounce off each other.
Yes, exactly.
That's kind of a comedy
right.
rule, yes. Remember The Young Ones, the British comedy series?
Yes.
Those were different personalities.
But what's also very important, like I was saying earlier, there was, the whole, the humor between Ralph and Alice, his wife, right? She'd make a snide comment. He'd be like, I'm going to pop you in the... Bang, zoom to the moon, that whole thing, right?
Bang, zoom to the moon, yeah.
And they'd butt heads, right? But it was always so very clear that that was just part of their dynamic. Sometimes just because of a little bit of stress, they absolutely loved each other. You know, that was so clear, especially by the end of especially because almost every episode, you know,
one
baby,
of these days,
you're the greatest.
Baby, you're the greatest at the end of each episode. Yes. Yep. One of these days, Alice, pow, right in the kisser. Remember that?
Yeah. There was I think it was a Far Side comic where two astronauts are on the moon and there's a woman lying there. Hey, look, Alice Cramden.
Oh, that's funny.
Welcome, lovely Sherry. Welcome.
The show would get trigger warnings today.
Nowadays, it would probably get a friggin' trigger warning. You're absolutely right.
Hello and welcome.
See, the lovely Sherry. Isn't she lovely?
Yes. And it's great to have you here. We always welcome roving YouTubers. But she has her own channel, I believe, correct? She been on other shows at least. I thought I've seen her.
She's a friend of the channel. She's oftentimes in the chat. Yes.
I'm trying to think what else has been going on though. But yeah, Honeymooners was just it was one of these shows that just, I guess, it defined television of the 1950s. It's why people bought TV sets.
It's true. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Even going back to the 1950s, everyone's talking about the Honeymooners. I better buy me one of those TV sets. Notice how that doesn't happen to a streaming series. I think the closest we had was Mandalorian. For a
very short time.
I'll give even Disney and Lucas credit where credit was due. That was the streaming series. That and Stranger Things, I think. But then suddenly, Disney, of course, stabbed that goose in the stomach and thought the eggs would fall full out, and they didn't.
Between the quality of shows dropping off and the, how would you say it, lack of predictability of when you're going to see your next season. That's been a big problem with streaming services too. And you can blame it on the coof, you can blame it on strikes, you can blame it on whatever you want. But the fact is that even those things notwithstanding, they don't stick to anything like a season schedule like the terrestrial TV always did.
Even the cable shows used to stick to a schedule. Yep. That's why everybody was really angry. I think there was the Game of Thrones final season part 1 or something, and then they didn't have the part 2 air the next year. And people were furious, but they got away with it because it was the biggest show on TV at that point. People would wait another 2 years, but you don't do that. Like, you're supposed to have this every year. You have your new season.
This is a big problem. And I'd run into it with, I'd put on a show that Netta and I used to watch, and she'd be like, oh, this show's still going on? I thought it ended. Yeah, because we haven't seen it in 1.5 to 2 years.
Like,
you know?
True Detective Season 4 is finally premiering. That's all well and good. When would True Detective Season 3 air? When was its air date? Let me look that up real quick. When was its air date? 2017 was when the 3rd season of True Detective. We are now getting a 4th season in 2024.
And
7 years later. Come on.
Here's the danger. You've already lost all your fans. They've all gone on to other things. Nobody's paying attention because they're not expecting it to come back. They'll find out it came back 2 years after it's already done. You know, there was another season? Oh, I'll have to go back and watch that.
People pick on the Brits, right? Because they do like these very short seasons of like 6 episodes. But you know what? All Creatures Great and Small, biggest show on PBS right now, they are consistently on every year.
Right.
They will have a new season on. So maybe they won't do a ton of episodes, but they are consistent.
That's the key.
Yeah,
that's the key. Because I do feel like there were some shows that, Star Trek The Next Generation, for example, I think they went too many episodes per season, especially with the huge budgets that they had. It really taxed their ability to put the show out. So when it ended after, I think it was 7 seasons, they were like, oh, thank goodness, you know? And Patrick Stewart was one who, because he came from, from the UK, he's like, I think these seasons over here are way too long. And I'd be fine with, 2/3 of the season or even a half the season.
I think you could get away with like 13 episode seasons or maybe 14. Like,
but
you
here's
could do,
the thing,
16 episodes maybe just.
But here's the thing: it's got to be good.
Yes.
Every episode. You can't have filler episodes then, right? And it must be consistent. If you air it in September and then you run it through, I don't know, like the holidays, and then, after the first of the year, you run it again in reruns, then next September, you better be putting out your next season. This is what I'm getting at. There's this loss of momentum, and you cannot afford that. If you're riding high on popularity, the only way you're going to keep that is to keep the momentum going.
It's like the X-Files revival series when it came back. It had 6 episodes, right?
Right.
And I was thinking, well, with only 6 episodes, they're all going to be gems, right? Harness gems. And I said, I hope we don't get any episodes where Mulder and Scully's involvement in the case is irrelevant because the supernatural thing is outside their control.
Let's put it to you this way.
And then they did one of those types of episodes in that first revival season. I was pissed. I hated that style of episode in the old series, but at least then they had to do like 20, 24 episodes a season. So
look at it this way, bringing it back to the topic at hand. How many seasons were there of The Honeymooners?
I don't know.
1. It was 39 episodes, but it was 1. Now, you could have broken that up into 2 seasons, but
39 episodes, that's not enough for syndication, but it was on in syndication. Curious. They hadn't developed, I guess, the syndication. Did they come back and shoot more episodes for syndication so you'd have a syndicated series?
No, I don't think
Only
so.
39 episodes. That's interesting because I know that the sweet spot for syndication was 60-something, right?
Right. But now also
that's why
keep
Star
in
Trek.
mind,
That's how Star Trek survived and got notoriety because they were able. It had enough to get into syndication.
Keep in mind this predates, the rules about
it does,
having to pay. That didn't start until what's it called, Gilligan's Island, when the cast took them to court and said, "Look, if you're going to be re-showing this, we deserve compensation." Before that, there were no rules about how and when you would repeat shows.
There was the movie Autofocus about the sordid life of Bob Crane, star of Hogan's Heroes, right?
Oh, yeah.
But there's a documentary on the DVD. It's kind of neat about DVDs. You get these extra things on there, right? And they were going into the murder case in the documentary as well as the movie. And the interesting thing, the movie tries to make it clear who the murderer is or who Bob Crane at least thought the murderer was, like he's telling the story post-mortem. But the documentary is not clear on that. This man probably had a lot of suspects of people who wanted him dead. Right? So,
exactly.
And I didn't think there was enough. Just because you don't like John Carpenter, that was the name of the guy who was his friend, not the John Carpenter, different John Carpenter. Right. That doesn't. You don't have to like the guy to also admit that maybe he's not the one who murdered him. At least beyond a reasonable doubt, you can't. I think the jury made the right call there. But what was interesting was, Bob Crane was always struggling for money after his acting career kind of fell off. And even in the movie, he's, screaming about not getting money and his agent's struggling with him because I guess he showed pornographic pictures to Donna Reed. That didn't help him in one, segment. They didn't show that scene in the movie, unfortunately. But anyway, though, but they made a point in that he died like right before the Hogan's Heroes royalties for syndication came into effect. And he would have made out like a bandit with those Hogan's Heroes royalties because the show was very popular and they had enough episodes to go into syndication.
Yeah.
And he was going to get all that advertising money from that. And he would have been probably set for life.
And I know I've talked about...
then he got murdered. But
Then I know I've talked about this before, but what's interesting, what I said about the Honeymooners being before that, and there were no rules on how you could... let's face it, the CBS owned it. They could do what they wanted. They could show it as many times as they wanted. The exact opposite in the UK. A show would run. Sometimes they'd run it a second time, and then that's it. And that is why so many shows, including Doctor Who, from that time have been lost because they would tape over. Yeah. Because the tapes were expensive back then. And there was no reason to keep them. Yeah, there was no reason to keep them if they weren't actually going to be using them. Heck, even just storage space was at a premium. So that's why we have so many lost British shows. But that times change, and then they work out deals. And yes, now not only is it a concern about we want to be able to re-show a show, but also, saving for posterity and archive purposes and so forth. So, but yeah, that is why the Honeymooners is so ubiquitous. You can oftentimes find the complete Honeymooners on DVD, very cheap in those bargain bins, like at Menards or wherever you're seeing these very cheap collections of DVDs.
Yeah. And I think I was watching a British YouTuber recently who was saying how he's going back to DVD. He was saying how he was, during the pandemic when he was home alone, he was picking up a lot of DVDs for, I guess, whatever the British currency was, like a few pounds or something.
Yeah.
He was getting all these old shows on DVD, and he said he prefers that to the streaming, because the trouble with the streaming is you start a series and you're halfway through it and then they pull it from the streaming site. It's sounds like it's hard to rekindle the excitement. A franchise goes dark for too long, people may forget about it.
Yeah.
And well, that's the problem today with TV. I don't know why they're not consistent with this scheduling. Like,
think about it. It's not terribly different from every other business that was affected by the pandemic. Movie theaters are still trying to catch back up because people were used to going to the movie theaters every Friday, every Saturday, right? To see something. That was your date night. That was your get out of the house, right? When that stopped and you couldn't do it, people found other things to do with their time.
Yeah.
Now they're not going back to that, unless there's something to really draw them in. And it's not just movie theaters, it's restaurants. I was having a bit of a hissy fit about a restaurant last week, and so forth.
Real bad, yeah.
And these companies are dying because they lost that momentum. They should have fought a little bit harder. Just saying. Hope you learned a lesson, corporate America, but, who knows?
It's funny. I was talking to my sister the other day, and we were comparing, like, people in McDonald's drive-thrus versus Chick-fil-A drive-thru.
Yeah.
Like, Chick-fil-A is so professional. They're very polite. They make sure you have everything you need. McDonald's, they're just weirdos working in there sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say.
Absolutely, and that's just it. I've said this many times. If you're in the service industry, you're not paying for the food. You're paying for the service. You really are. You're paying for convenience. You're paying for, polite service. Can I get an extra ketchup packet? Whatever. When that's gone and it all becomes self-service and kiosks and you do everything but make the damn food yourself, you know what? I can friggin' stay home and do this. And then I will make the food myself. And I know I'm going to get exactly what I wanted and nobody's spitting in it. Well, if someone spits in it, it's me and it doesn't matter,
Not to bring up the
yeah, exactly.
Not to bring up the X-Files again, but in the final season, they did the revival season. Scully and Mulder, they went to this, I guess, sushi restaurant, and it was done like an automat. Like, there were no waiters. And, like, Mulder gets the wrong thing, like this big bloated fish. He gets angry, so he starts looking around. He goes back in the back, and the whole back is run by robots. Like, there are no actual people in the place.
Right. That's going to be the next thing. It's literally going to be... And this is what I tried to imply to this manager at this restaurant. I said, look, pretty soon you won't even be able to employ people to work in cooking. It'll all be automated. So we will literally walk in, order at a kiosk, the robot will spit the food out, we'll take it and leave. I'm not even sure why we would bother getting out of our car at that point. Can you bring up Rosefire's penultimate comment? She said, I wouldn't mind going back to the theater. Yeah, I wouldn't mind going back to the theaters if they re-release classic great films on the big screen. Film noir, Disney Renaissance, epic 50s stories, gritty 70s, etc. You know what, Rosefire? I'll do you one even better. I think that would not only save the theaters, but it would, even without their intention of doing so, help a lot of these studios as well. And what the theaters need to start doing is saying, you know what? We don't want to show your new POS cartoon that we know nobody's going to come to see. We're going to show an older Disney film that people do want to see. Oh, you don't want us to do that? Okay, fine. We won't show any Disney films. We'll go over to this other company. If they start doing that, they take back the power from the studios. I don't think they have the guts to do it, but they really, really should.
That would be awesome. I mean, they were doing that sort of during that pandemic. I think maybe you mentioned that before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to see, especially some of these obscure, gritty 70s movies in the big screen. That'd be neat. I also watched DreamWorks re-release Prince of Egypt in theaters during the Christmas and Easter season. The animation is so beautiful. I want to see it on the big screen. I saw that on the big screen when it was originally released, Rosefire, and it was something to behold. DreamWorks, in my opinion, has been terrible to that movie. It got released on Blu-ray, and the reviews were not kind. They said that movie really needs a remaster, a cleanup job. And I remember at the time it was a huge deal, and now they just ignore it. Because back then, I kept thinking that DreamWorks was going to go the opposite way of Disney, whereas Disney would do fairy tales. I thought DreamWorks was going to do epics. Yeah. Like you might do the Exodus story, or maybe you could do something from ancient Greece or something in another thing, or maybe do more Bible stories. There's enough stuff there, but I was hoping they were going to do stuff more from the classical world. And then they kind of dropped off with that, and they went more the CG route because Shrek was so popular. But I did want to mention one other thing about that X-Files episode, though. You know how like the robots, they gave him the wrong thing. He gets the bill, right? Mulder gets the bill.
Yeah.
And it said gratuity, 10%, 15%, 20%, no gratuity. And Mulder says, no gratuity.
Yeah.
And the whole episode, him and Scully are being hounded by machines. So, but it's like modern machines. So it's like she goes back to her house and like the electronic locks aren't working right and they keep opening up. And you know that thing where you have to go on the internet to get to your email account and you have to hit the CAPTCHA and click all the things.
Right,
and it's all the awfulness of modern technologies in this episode. And then finally drones are coming after them. And then finally the robot, I think they make a point. We learn from you, and I guess the robot was trying to make a point that, we're learning how to behave from human behavior. So then Mulder goes back to the tip, and guess what he hits? 10%. And they go away.
He's
tell
me
this. Give him the highest tip, though.
You tell me this, and I think of that scene from Willy Wonka, with the supercomputer. Tell the computer that if it will tell me where the last golden ticket is, I would gladly split the lifetime supply of chocolate with it.
Yes.
What does it say? The computer said, "What would I do with a lifetime supply of chocolate?" Oh. I am now telling the computer exactly what it can do with a lifetime supply of chocolate.
I appreciate the fact that the computer was being honest, and it says, "I won't tell." That would be cheating. Yeah. Well, that was interesting because that was back when we assumed that that AI, robots, whatever, would be programmed with ethics. Yes. Well, now I realize first they're basing it all on human interactions. Secondly, it's programmed by people without ethics. What do we expect? I think your X-Files was probably pretty dead on. Yeah, it was just a weird one because it was the only they once in a while they would deal with AI on the show, not often, but every so often they would deal with AI. Okay, we should probably bring it back in. We're at the half-hour mark, and whatever. I won't talk about the X-Files for 2 hours. It's my stream. It is. I'm just saying you might want to consider. Anyway, I'll talk about the X-Files another time. So if you would say that the Flintstones is the cartoon version of the Honeymooners, then Joyce Randolph's character of Trixie would be the prototype for Betty Rubble. Yeah, for Betty Rubble. Yeah, definitely. And she unfortunately has left us at age 99. It sounds like she was the last of the Honeymooners. Yeah. And hold on. Looks like I didn't do notes for this one. I guess I'm fired. I did get it too late. No, but I meant to. I put the link in there, and I was going to do the notes. But that's okay. I'll read directly. It's HollywoodReporter.com. She was the last surviving member of the sitcom's famous foursome. Joyce Randolph, who played Trixie, the wife of Art Carney's goofy sewer worker. I have no reason to believe she's related to Grace Randolph in any way, shape, or form, by the way. Just thought I'd mention that. You never know. Ed Norton on the classic sitcom The Honeymooners has died. She was 99. This means Ed Norton had a dirty job. Like that show, Dirty Jobs.
Yeah, he worked in the sewer, I believe.
Yeah. Randolph, the last surviving member of the famous foursome that also included the stars Jackie Gleason as Brooklyn bus driver Ralph Cramden and Audrey Meadows as Ralph's level-headed wife Alice, died Saturday at her home in New York. Her son Randy told TMZ. Gleason spotted Randolph doing a commercial for Clorette's and hired her to play Trixie on his Dumont Network variety show Cavalcade of Stars, which premiered in 1951 and featured the Cramdens and the Nortons' neighbors in a rundown Bursenhurst apartment building in a recurring skit. Isn't that interesting? How this starts as a recurring skit, kind of like how The Simpsons was a recurring skit on the Tracy Ullman show. That's interesting. Randolph continued on CBS's The Jackie Gleason Show and then The Honeymooners when it was spun off in 1955, 1956 as a half-hour sitcom recorded in front of a live audience. The season is known for the classic 39 episodes seen most often in syndication. She and Meadows had worked together in a summer stock production of No Nanette the year before Randolph landed the Trixie role. Meadows replaced Pert Kelton, the original Alice, for the Jackie Gleason show. Gleason famously chose not to rehearse, making for some nervous performers. We just played ourselves, Randolph, who made $500 in episodes for the 39 classic installments. That's good money back then.
Back then it was,
told the New York Times in 2012. Nobody told us to characterize in any way. It was learn those lines and go on. Of the main foreign characters, Randolph had the least to do. Asked by Larry King in 2002 if she had a favorite episode, replied, "Oh, I love them all, but I love the sleepwalking one when Norton wanders downstairs while snoozing, and any show in which I had more than 6 or 7 lines I really loved." But yeah, we'll miss her. Let me see, though. On October 17th, Randolph was on the red carpet for the premiere of The Honeymooners, a musical, at the Paper Mill Playhouse in New Jersey. I'd been to the Paper Mill Playhouse in New Jersey because I was from New Jersey. I think I saw a performance of a Sherlock Holmes play there once, actually.
Nice.
But she was married to marketing executive Richard Charles from 1955 until his death in 1997 at age 74. Well, it sounds like she had a full life. Sorry she go, but you can catch her in her performances, especially on The Honeymooners. So, definitely.
Exactly
I like the women had a nice look back then. It was kind of like the working class women, like tough but feminine at the same tough but feminine at the same time. That's what I noticed.
Imagine that. Yeah. You could do both, right?
Yes. But
the two were not mutually exclusive.
But rest in peace, Joyce Randolph. Mandalorian.
Yep.
It's sad. I remember a point in time where this sort of thing would excite you. Now it's just, I guess Disney, you were happy and then you smiled and Disney took the knife and twisted it in your back. That's what it's sounding like here.
So before you get into the article, we're going to be talking about the announcement about a Mandalorian movie, and this whole streaming debacle BS is coming full circle. This movie is literally going to be a composite of the last 2 episodes of the season. That's what they're doing. They're going to give us a season of The Mandalorian, and then the last 2 episodes are going to be thrown together as a movie.
Is this your theory, or is this what's actually happening?
That's what I've heard implied. We don't know until we actually get it, but
I had another theory about this.
Okay.
So we are getting another season of The Mandalorian.
That's what I've heard, yes.
Okay, because I thought that Kathleen Kennedy had mentioned how she wanted a Star Wars to become like James Bond movies, where you'd have one every couple years, like in the old, when they used to do James Bond movies that way.
From a business standpoint, that makes a lot of sense.
And I was thinking maybe this is what they would do with The Mandalorian. They would do a Mandalorian movie every couple of years. And I guess the adventures of him and Grogu, and they would just be like 90 to 2-hour movies, and then you just come back every couple of years, and you don't even need to use the same actor all the time because it's this guy in a suit, right?
We've been saying all along that these series that they've been putting out have been just chock full of filler that they could be cut down into. Each season could be cut down into a damn movie and released. This streaming thing is not working. They're losing subscribers. Less and less people are watching these shows, at least legally. And what it comes down to is The Mandalorian I hate to shock anybody, especially those of you that like The Mandalorian. It's going to suffer from the same problems that the Marvels did. If you didn't watch all 5 or whatever it was of the streaming Marvel shows on D-, you had no idea who these characters were and what their backstory was. So nothing that was happening in the movie made any sense. People are going to go see The Mandalorian who have never had Disney Plus and go, why are they calling him The Mandalorian? I thought he was Boba Fett. And who's Grogu? Oh, they mean Baby Yoda. That's what you're going to get.
Yeah, because that's the name known in the mainstream. They call him Baby Yoda. What I don't understand is Snarky J had done a video on this, and she said that they could have gone one of 2 things after the season 2 finale. They could have just been, this is the it for the Mandalorian, and he goes and disappears into the and his story is done basically. Or they could have done more stories, but him as acting solo like he was in the beginning, but maybe now helping out people in distress. So but he wouldn't have Grogu with him. Grogu wouldn't have been with him. He would have been doing.
If they were to go the way that the character seemed to have started out,
yeah,
he should have just, the last episode or the last movie or his last appearance should be the equivalent of him going off, into the sunset. Right. Like the Man with No Name or any of those kinds of movies, right? Right. But I can guarantee you what possible spoiler based on nothing. This is just my assumption. The Mandalorian movie is going to kill off the Mandalorian. It's going to kill off Din Djarin, and it's going
That's the money maker.
Nope, because Starbucks going to take over.
But she'll be the new Mandalorian.
Well, technically she is still a Mandalorian.
A Mandalorian.
Right?
None of this makes any sense. Was he like a Clint Eastwood style character, like the gunslinger in the Clint Eastwood movies? Is that what they were sort of going for with him?
Well, you got to go back a little bit further. Boba Fett, as he appeared in Empire Strikes Back, was meant to be, to the point that when he walked in, they used the sound of spurs for the footfalls. He was literally meant to be that kind of a character. So when it came time to do The Mandalorian, that was supposed to be the Boba Fett show. And the geniuses behind Lucasfilm said, no, let's do a new character. And we got Din Djarin. And it was so good because we were like, yeah, I would have preferred it was Boba Fett, but this is basically Boba Fett. So, yeah, okay, fine. All good. Then we started getting all this kind of weird lore about the helmet and crap, and we're like, okay.
I mean, that wasn't on Clone Wars? I thought that was something they introduced on Clone Wars.
No, they did not.
So this whole thing about Mandalorians.
You go back and watch the Clone Wars, they took their helmets off. Well, I mean, look at I'm forgetting the damn character's name, Starbucks character, and all of her Mandalorians. They hardly ever wear their helmet unless they're like, hitting their rocket packs.
Wouldn't it have just made more sense just to have this specific character not want to remove his helmets for some reason, rather than coming up with a reason that it's a ethnic thing that the Mandalorians don't remove their helmets?
Yeah, I don't know. But the important point is that when we finally got around to Boba Fett, they're like, well, we've already done the story that we intended for Boba Fett. Now we got to make some... Yeah, thank you, Matt Anui, and welcome, by the way. Sabine? No.
Sabine is a Mandalorian.
Sabine is a Mandalorian, but she's the one from the Rebels.
Now she's a Jedi. You're thinking of
she's
both,
still a fucking cartoon, even played by a live-action character. She's still a cartoon. The whole show comes off like a live-action cartoon. It really does.
This is why we don't talk about Star Wars on Geeky Geezers. Save that for Friday
but when they finally got around to doing Boba Fett, it's like, well, we've already done the whole story we intended for Boba Fett with The Mandalorian. So now we're going to just turn him into an old grandpa who's no longer on his game, and he's softened up because...
I thought they were going to make it like a Godfather type series. I thought that was what they were going to go with, but that obviously, I guess that's not...
We were all being very generous by assuming that was the case. But you got to remember, every time... Bo-Katan, thank you, Deleted Scenes. Every time we think... there's potential here. They find some way to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. They have a great possibility. They're like, no, that's too good an idea. We're really trying to fuck this up. So let's really make this as shitty as possible.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say, here's a quote from Jon Favreau. I have loved telling stories set in the rich world that George Lucas created, said Favreau. The prospect of bringing the Mandalorian and his apprentice Grogu to the big screen is extremely exciting. He's the Mandalorian's apprentice now?
You got me.
So he decided not to be a Jedi. Is that what's going to set Luke to going nuts and drinking the green milk from the thing because Grogu left him?
Yeah, he's so heartbroken that his first student dumped him that he tries to kill his nephew. That's what it is.
Theoretically, couldn't this, if they had just like maybe let the Mandalorian go his own way and then done adventures, just solo adventures, and done them like kind of like some of those old spaghetti westerns with him getting money to like get it taken out the bad guys, but also maybe helping people who needed it along the way, that sort of thing. That could have been
it very much had that Western style thing that it by the end of second season when they threw in, or in Boba Fett, they throw in a couple episodes of Mandalorian because I don't know why. I have no idea what they were doing. And third season Mandalorian, it was like we were watching a whole different show. It was like, okay, this is not... Yes, Grogu is a Mandalorian apprentice.
Oh, his choice. All right, they said that thing with Luke and the thing. I think I remember hearing about it. I have not watched this series, so I don't know.
Considering he's pre-verbal, he's still some... Maybe that could be his Mandalorian name. Like Pre-Vizsla, pre-verbal. That's who he is. There you go.
What happened? Did he make your choice and one of them was a blow pop and the other was a Tootsie
Luke
Roll
gives him a choice to choose between going back to Mando or staying and being a Jedi. He goes back to the Mandalorian. Once he goes back to Mandalorian, the leader of his sect says, well, you've chosen, you are a foundling, and so therefore, when you're of age, you'll cover your face and never be seen again, I guess. I don't know how this shit works. Because that really would kill their whole marketing strategy, because they're banking on him being, oh, cute, put out the fuzzy...
But he never has to age. He's a puppet, dude.
Oh, yeah, I get that.
And Mandalorian never has to age either, because it's a dude in a mask. Even if Pedro Pascal passes away, they just get a sound alike for him. Get a different actor. I mean, it's not going to be that difficult.
You say that, I say that, everybody agrees with you, but for some reason, Lucasfilm is, no, we can never recast any role. We've got to digitally Frankenstein them, or we've got to keep the actor playing the role until he breaks a hip. Seriously.
Leasing says Lone Wolf and Cub ripoff. I have the Blu-ray set of those, the movie versions of that series, Lone Wolf and Cub. That's the one where I guess I don't know. I'm not going to bother. I haven't seen it yet, but I know that the kid is given a choice in that too about what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Either I think it's either suicide or we'll get vengeance for the murder of your mom, and he chooses the vengeance.
I'll tell you, I do. There are some great story elements and character development in this series, but it's like everything else Disney does. It's like, but they can't let that be. They've got to find some way to squash it somewhere else, And but anyway, maybe we should. Hey, good to see you there, Gorilla Random Thoughts.
Jumping people's cars. Hope you're jumping on top of them and not in front of them. Anyway,
you might not understand because you are so used to warm weather. Those of us in
jumping
minus zero he's trying to help people get their cars started.
Be very safe. That can be. I'm sure he knows what he's doing though. Okay.
But anyway, so we got a Mandalorian movie coming out. It's going to predate the Rey movie, which of course is going to suck. Which even if the Mandalorian movie is good, which I have zero reason to believe it will be, any goodwill that the fans give it will be shot to shit by putting Rey up on the big screen again. So Good luck, Disney. You've beaten a dead horse for years now. The thing is putrefying and turning to jelly. Give it up already.
Well, speaking of other things, Marvel.
Yeah. Bear with me while I share the link because I was so busy on my rant, I kind of got lost in it.
That's the Marvel symbol. Remember Marvel Comics had a different looking signage, I remember, back in the day. Are you confused, people, by the future of the MCU? That's the topic of the next article.
I actually haven't been paying attention since Avengers Endgame, so don't care.
I watched the final season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
Which got confusing because I think they started dealing with...
Too much of the time travel,
They did a lot of time travel in that. See, I liked what they did with the time travel in a couple seasons earlier. They did a time travel, but it was more about them being stuck on a loop where the Earth gets destroyed, they end up in the future, then they have to go back in time to prevent it from happening. But it doesn't matter because each time they try preventing it happening, it keeps happening again.
Yeah,
and
it's one of those.
There's nothing they can do to stop it. It keeps, it's
literally a predestination paradox. They can't change it. Yeah,
I think they finally figure out a way to change it at the end of the season. But they were stuck. I think they'd gone through the cycle dozens, if not hundreds of times. Where,
wow.
it's been over a decade since Lucas said Lucasfilm, and almost 10 years since The Force Awakens. Yes, it's been a long time. You'd think it'd be enough time for a change, but. The MCU's canon change makes one upcoming Marvel movie more confusing. Well, let's read the article. A major casting choice for Marvel Studios' upcoming Blade reboot might have just been confused thanks to a huge change in the official timeline of the MCU. Long before the days of Disney Plus, Marvel Television produced its own series of shows for Netflix focused on more mature street-level stories and characters, dubbed the Defenders Saga. Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, the Defenders, and the Punisher have recently been the subjects of dispute concerning MCU canon. Initially, these shows were thought to have been set in the world of the MCU, but the development of Marvel Studios' own TV shows for Disney Plus left this unclear. I thought they weren't part of this. I thought but let's move on. Marvel Television's Defender Saga saw Charlie Cox, Kristen Ritter, Mike Coulter, Finn Jones, John Bernthal, and Vincent D'Onofrio portray some of Marvel Comics' most iconic street-level characters in live action. Cox and D'Onofrio have since reprised their roles as Matt Murdock's Daredevil and Wilson Fisk's Kingpin, respectively, in the MCU proper, and Bernthal will join them in Marvel Studios' Daredevil Born Again. But the others' futures are less clear. However, there is hope for these other heroes to return to after recent developments in the MCU's official timeline. But other character stories may have been confused by some major changes behind the scenes at Marvel Studios. The Netflix Marvel shows are on Disney Plus, with Daredevil Born Again on the way. Here's the full watch order for the Defender shows and the Punisher. Okay. All right. Anyway, in conjunction with the release of Marvel Studios' Echo.
Mm-hmm.
We heard about Echo?
I've seen some clips. Let me just say that the fight scenes were not nearly as well choreographed as in the Netflix series.
No. Okay, Marvel Television Defender Saga projects were folded into the MCU's official timeline listing on Disney+. This seems to imply that the 6 shows that originally aired on Netflix may now officially be canon in the MCU's overarching stories. Though Marvel Studios hasn't yet provided comment on the matter, Echo marked the return of Daredevil and Kingpin, with the latter confirming that some events depicted in Netflix's Daredevil series occurred in the MCU's main continuity, though it seems Marvel Studios is picking and choosing which bits to keep and which to rewrite. Let's see, Blade's MCU casting is more complex after the timeline change. While the idea of Defender Saga finally being confirmed in the canon, the MCU is exciting for several reasons. Not least, it means the return of popular characters may return to the MCU's future. This could also confuse the status quo of several upcoming MCU projects. Perhaps most notably, Academy Award winner Mahershala Ali has been attached to Marvel Studios' upcoming Blade reboot since 2019 and is set to appear in the film's titular star, a leading role in the MCU. This is despite his turn as the villain, Cornell Cottonmouth Stokes, in Luke Cage, which was another main role, so his double casting could be difficult to explain. It's not difficult to explain. It doesn't make any sense, actually.
Okay,
I felt they
so
killed.
I can.
Cottonmouth was just getting interesting, and they killed him off on that show too.
Here's this is news that I've been seeing show up on a lot of different streams, a lot of different outlets, and it's not that difficult. Everyone is making more out of this than there actually is here. Okay, first, keep in context how many roles within the Marvel Universe have been recast. How many people have played the Hulk? How many people have played Thaddeus Ross? How many people have played War Machine?
Yes.
Okay? So let's keep this in context. Now, by the same token, we haven't even had a Blade reboot. As far as anyone's concerned, the only Blade there is Wesley Snipes. Just saying, okay? Until you actually get that movie out there, this doesn't even become an issue. But again, until Echo, we were assuming that the Netflix stuff was non-canon. It was a whole separate universe. Now they're saying, well, it kind of sort of is, but because of their whole friggin' ridiculous-ass multiverse of madness, some of it might be canon, some of it might not be. You're supposed to assume that this story or this element happened in the Marvel Universe just like it did in the Netflix universe, but maybe Luke Cage didn't happen at all, right? So that actor, Cottonmouth, may not even exist in the mainline Marvel Universe. So the fact that they're reusing another actor, come on, people, these are actors. We are not so stupid as an audience that we can go, wait a minute, he looks just like the guy that played Cottonmouth. Is that Cottonmouth? Well, they've been calling him Blade through the whole thing. I don't know. Come on!
Just like Peter Capaldi played a character on a Torchwood miniseries, but then was the Doctor. We don't.
Not only that, he was also a character in Doctor Who.
Yes.
That David Tennant's character met in ancient Rome.
Yes. But I don't know. Here's the problem. I felt that the Netflix series and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they were done kind of dirty by the movies because the movies would never acknowledge them. But the series always sort of had to acknowledge, because I almost thought that the Netflix Marvel series would have been better off just being their own universe. Like, this is the gritty, like, Marvel Knights universe, basically. The grittier version of Marvel. Yeah, exactly. And that way you can make R-rated content and have characters like the Punisher, maybe even bring Ghost Rider into it later on or something like that. But that's...
You know, I shared this article with you again because so many people were talking about it. I couldn't see us not bringing it up. But at the same time, I kept having, Peter Griffin in my head. Who the hell cares? You know?
Well, this is how sites make their money on news stories, man.
I guess. But so there you go. You're informed. Let's go on to the next one.
Did I send that to you, or did you send it to me?
No, I sent it to you.
Okay, all right, because I'm all right.
It's my fault. I'm kind of blaming myself for the stupidity.
We have to. I'm going to lose half the chat now. They're going to run out looking at this picture here.
Well, it could be.
That's Angry Kirk. That's actually.
Oh God.
Was that the one with his where he split into two?
Yes. Yes,
and
it
there
is.
was the evil
I'm Kirk. Captain Kirk.
You know what?
I mean, that's literally what he is saying in that scene.
And then they had, I guess, what was it? The beta male version of Captain Kirk was in charge, who I guess is.
Yeah. Which was good because it wasn't that he. And see, this is the distinction. You got to realize he wasn't evil, right? He was. No. This was id versus superego. Yeah. You know.
And you need both.
And they both realize we gotta recombine. Don't worry, you're not gonna die. We're just going back to the way we were.
Well, it's better than the Tuvix episode of Voyager, right?
God, yeah, that was like the opposite. And that was like, oh God, really?
People yell at Janeway said she was a murderer for doing that.
Well, I mean, if you want to go with Vulcan logic, right? Needs of the many, needs of the few. I'm sorry, the needs of the two outweigh the needs of the one.
The needs of
right?
Neelix don't outweigh anything.
If I leave it this way, I've killed 2 people. You know?
Yeah, but you made an improved Neelix. I didn't get through all of Voyager. I just remember watching watching when they got stranded on that planet after the gang members or the Broccoli heads stole the Voyager ship, right? And I remember Neelix was ordering this one guy, "Hey, go look for the bones. They might make good tools." And the guy and the one Starfleet officer starts picking up the bones, and then it's eaten by a dinosaur. And I'm thinking, why are you taking suggestions from this guy that's not even a Starfleet officer?
Yeah,
spent
how
many years at Starfleet Academy, and you just got eaten by a dinosaur? And I get off on tangents. I should say.
No, I mean, it's, you know.
Let's read about Shatner, huh? He's the most important. William Shatner blasts Paramount for its erasure of Captain Kirk in Star Trek. William Shatner took shots at Paramount over the handling of the Star Trek franchise and the erasure of the most beloved character in Star Trek history, Captain Kirk. Prompted by a question from ex-user Hero.
Good luck.
That guy asking, but will we ever see Captain Kirk again? William Shatner took a recent Paramount Plus Star Trek Originals promotional image with a poster with every captain from every Star Trek show on the image, but oddly, Captain Kirk was missing. So William Shatner wrote along with the image. All you have to do is look at Paramount Plus graphics to answer that question.
Yeah. He keeps pointing it out, and although he does it in his typical William Shatner, tongue-in-cheek, I don't really care kind of way, I kind of almost wish that he would kind of get down to the brass tacks, because I think there's more to this than he's saying.
His answer sparked outrage from fans, chief among them pop culture experts Neurotic, Doomcock, and the Critical Drinker. Neurotic posted, "This is a crime against Star Trek." Doomcock said, "This is a travesty. I'm sorry, I'm trying. Captain Kirk is the heart of Star Trek. Without Captain Kirk, the whole thing is a sham."
Yeah.
God bless William Shatner and the immortal character he created. My childhood hero. Thank you for all the joy you brought me, Bill. You're the best. Critical Drinker asks, "Why do they keep trying to erase you?" I'm telling you, I know why, and you know why too.
I think there's more to it than you even think.
Well, he's a masculine hero, and they want him out of there. That's what it is.
I think there's more to it than that. You're not wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong. You're absolutely right. But when you look at the graphics that he's referring to, that he is, eliminated from, his era is represented because you have Spock and Uhura.
Yes.
Right? Leonard Nimoy and Nichelle Nichols, God rest both their souls. Shatner's still with us. So guess what? My bet is there's also a financial element to this. They can use the likeness of the dead actors and not have to pay anyone for it. I'll bet you dollars to donuts. All the other stuff that's represented there is promoting their current shows. When they show Picard, it's because they got a Picard show on right now.
Well, and they have a cartoon character on there too, which they don't have to pay any rights to the actor.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
You know what they should do instead? They should have that the long neck guy from Star Trek the Animated Series, the orange guy.
Eric's, yeah, Lieutenant Eric's, exactly. Hell, I'm working on putting together a custom action figure because they'll never make one.
I'm surprised. That was the one thing back when I thought. Well, after Anton Yelkin died, and they couldn't have him in any more of the Abrams Trek movies. I thought, well, that was something they could do, is just have him in the spot instead of Chekov, because you notice on the animated series, Chekov wasn't on the animated series.
Yep,
maybe at that point he got promoted and was working on the.
But that would have made too damn much sense. And let's face it, J.J. Abrams, I can't find the clip quickly, but he specifically said, "I never liked Star Trek. I was just doing this because I want to do Star Wars." Well, not that, he did any favors for Star Wars either. No, but he did not bother or care about it. And just not knowing Star Trek is no excuse, because Nicholas Meyer, right? But whatever. He didn't put in enough time and energy to come up with that kind of an idea. Again, the fans come up with better ideas and thoughts than the hacks in Hollywood these days.
It's ridiculous. there is so much you could have borrowed from with Star Trek too. I don't. They don't want to spend money on creatives. That's what the problem is. They just hire these producers, and I don't know.
So
Anything
I
left
think
on? Yeah, go ahead. You want to pivot?
so. The last thing I was going to say about this is that this is what's even worse about all this is Shatner is still with you. So if you want to do anything with Shatner and that character,
Yeah,
you need to do it now before he's gone, and they're intentionally pissing it away. It's just like, everyone complained about not getting Luke, Leia, and Han together before Carrie died and killing off Han Solo, and then Luke Skywalker. It's like, well, now you can't do it, And they're going to try doing that in one of their upcoming movies and say, "See, we did it." Yeah, you did it with CG robots, that aren't even the actors. We don't care anymore.
I'm telling you, they're gonna do something to Luke's Force Ghost in that Rey movie. He's gonna get swallowed up by something. I'm telling you, it's gonna be.
Well, the rumor is that she's going to be pregnant with Force Ghost Kylo Ren's baby.
Doesn't it take?
I'm not even joking about that.
Doesn't it take place a number of years after?
Yep, that's why it's got to be his Force Ghost, and it can't be him himself.
It doesn't make any sense.
It never did. Since Lucasfilm was sold to Disney, none of it makes effing sense. But if you think that just omitting William Shatner from, every honor and publicity of Star Trek isn't bad enough, they're going to go back and crap all over the earlier prequel of Star Trek, Enterprise.
New Star Trek origin movie set decades before J.J. Abrams' 2009 film announced. You know what kills me? Couldn't this be a perfect time to do a Enterprise reunion movie?
Yes.
And just set it in the appropriate time, but before the obviously the original Star Trek crew, and have it be about.
Yes.
Something. They could do that, but that's not what they're going to do.
If they wanted to get back on track, but this is J.J. Abrams, right? 25% different. And before anyone comes at me and says, "Well, that's not real. That's just made up." Bullshit. Bad Robot actually confirmed that. JJ himself specifically said we have to be significantly different enough that we are our own brand.
But I don't understand this though. If it's decades before, I assumed all the Captain Archer Enterprise stuff even was still consistent even with Abrams' Kelvin timeline.
No, because as soon as Star Trek the Narada went back in time, not only did it change everything going forward, it changed everything going backward. That makes no fucking sense, but that is confirmed by the StarTrek.com website. That is their official canon.
Did a piece of shrapnel from the exploded Kelvin
go back in time? I don't know.
And hit Captain Archer in the chest and he died or something?
No, I don't know. I don't know about any of that, but because they don't explain it. It's like what Tarantino said when he was saying, "I don't understand any of this." Nobody understands it. J.J. Abrams himself said that, and it's like, but all it is you as the fan have to make up your own headcanon to explain what they've done for corporate reasons.
Okay, I don't understand any of this though. For instance, does Picard take place in an alternate timeline, or is it still in TNG timeline? Discovery, is that Kelvin timeline, or is that another alternate universe or original timeline? Have they explained any of this?
They
when
have
these
not.
things take place?
The only series that has happened since the bad reboot people got involved with it is season 3 of Picard. Done by Terry Matalas, in every single way appears to take place in the original Next Gen universe, even to the extent where he kind of fudges over the previous 2 seasons. He still has to acknowledge them. There's still some references to them, but by and large, he's ignoring them and going on with a story that real fans of the Next Gen can say, yeah, I could see this being, the future of Star Trek, and that's why for all intents and purposes, I don't think they're going to use him anymore. Because maybe it's just not 25% different enough for them. Did we lose you? Boomer? I'm going to take over the show.
I think you dropped out. I can't hear him.
Well, let me know in the chat, folks, if you guys can all still hear me. Because otherwise we don't have a show if both of us are not being heard. I can
hear you.
Okay, good. So I'm just going to continue going.
Remember, I'm just in the chat. I'm not on StreamYard.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and finish reading this article for you. A new Star Trek movie set decades before J.J. Abrams' Star Trek 2009 is reportedly in development at Paramount Pictures. Star Trek Beyond in 2016 was the last time a Star Trek movie hit theaters, and multiple attempts to develop Star Trek 4, produced by J.J. Abrams, have failed to lift off. Just between you and me, failed to get the financing because no one has any faith in it. Meanwhile, Star Trek on Paramount Plus has launched several successful, I'd like to know what their definition of successful is, TV series such as Star Trek Discovery, Star Trek Picard, and Star Trek Strange New Worlds, strange being the operative word there, which was bolstered by Star Trek brand and IP. Paramount Plus is also producing its first made-for-streaming movie, Star Trek Section 30. Star Trek 31 they're still friggin' talking about?
Oh, it's still happening. It is still happening.
Starring Academy Award winner Michelle Yeoh. Yeah, you know what?
Oh, they're throwing that up there.
I'll tell you what. If they could have friggin' afford Michelle Yeoh at this point, she's going to be the whole budget for all of their damn shows.
I don't know. I mean,
my God.
To begin with, because I'm like,
give it up already. She's got to be like, you know what? No, I'm done. I'm just done. Anyway, I'll talk to this in a moment. Deadline is reporting that Paramount has set director Toby Hayes of Star Wars Andor and writer Seth Grahame-Smith, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, okay, to develop it's better than Gilmore Girls,
I guess,
to develop a new Star Trek movie to be produced by J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot. This new Star Trek movie is said to be an origin story set decades before Abrams' Star Trek 2009, which takes place in the alternate Kelvin timeline in 2258. Again, going back to that 25% different thing, the Kelvin timeline, the whole timeline, going back to the dawn of time, has to be a different universe. So even though the temporal mechanics make zero sense, they've already established, no, even before that, it's all different too. In addition, Dateline says Star Trek 4, which is called the final chapter of Abrams' Star Trek saga starring Chris Pine, that includes Star Trek 2009, Into Darkness and Beyond, remains in active development. Read that as development hell, and I think Chris Pine has already said he's not doing this anymore.
I don't understand.
I'll explain.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's about 10 years since Bad Robot, got the contract to do this Kelvin timeline bullshit.
Oh, I think it's been more than 10 years, right?
Okay, it may be more than 10 years.
Like 2008 2009, yeah.
My bet is that they are, they're at contract point. And if he doesn't have something in active development, they lose Star Trek. Or their brand of Star Trek. The contract ends and they're out. Just like back when Roger Corman had the rights to do the Fantastic Four, and he threw together some piece of crap that was never meant to see the light of day, just so that he could keep the options for the movie. Yeah. I think something similar happened with Captain America, with I'm forgetting what the actor's name was, but he had these weird artificial ears sewn on the outside of his cowl because reasons. I don't know.
What?
But, yeah.
The one from the one from the 70s.
Yeah, the one with Cox as the playing the president.
Okay. Oh, brother, my mom says she's to binge watch Gilmore Girls twice last year. My dad was the one who had to buy every season. Wow.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I have bought the entire run of Gilmore Girls on DVD. Netter and I both watched the show and loved it. But just because we enjoyed that show doesn't mean those writers are well equipped to write for Star Trek.
Yes.
They're two very, very, very... They're not only very different shows, they're completely different genres.
Yeah.
Writing a dramatic sitcom about a single mom and her daughter, is in a quirky town, is very, very different from writing, hard science fiction, action adventure. Not the Reb Brown one. It was the other one, Salinger. Something Salinger.
Oh, no.
Thank you,
Salinger's
David.
kid. I remember that. Yes. J.D. Salinger's son, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a terrible movie, but I think it was done to try holding
rights.
on to those rights, yeah.
Did they have to do a Fantastic Four for that reason, too?
Yeah, that was the Corman one that I was talking
yes,
about.
yeah,
That was never officially released in any way. At least the Salinger one was eventually released. They're doing the same. Sony's doing the same thing right now by continuing to make Spider-Man related things. They're holding on to those rights, and of all the rights to hold on to, Spider-Man is the one, because as far as marketing goes,
it does it for you. Sony
is making a butt ton of money off of toys and action figures and all this kind of stuff, right? The difference is that Bad Robot isn't making squat off their 25% different Star Trek. Look, you all know how much I love those Mego action figures. Mego has the license to do classic Trek, movie gen, next gen, and Star Trek Discovery. The Star Trek Discovery toys are not selling. So they're not developing it as hard as they are the other things. I'm seeing Hasbro doing the same thing with Star Wars. I see, they make what sells, and they eschew the things that don't sell. And if you try to twist the screws and say, well, if you want to be able to put out Kirk, you have to put out, the Christopher Pine Kirk as well. No, because that's a whole bunch of development and tooling and material that gets us nothing. We lose money on the deal. We're better Matt Salinger. That's his name. Thank you, David Pensay. We're walking away from this, Fuck, Hasbro can't afford to lose more money. Anyway, I'm sorry. We were talking about Star Trek. So that's what I think this is. I think this is a contracting thing where he's trying to hold on to his bad reboot. And now with Paramount, up in the air and possibly being sold or merging or whatever the fuck, I don't think anybody cares about Star Trek anymore. And I mean over there, behind the scenes.
But why do they keep making all these series, though? They have all these series. I mean, there's going to be a contract eventually, right?
Because this is what you do to keep your job. You keep producing, As long as I keep working, they'll keep me hired. That's what it's all about.
I don't get it. Okay. I don't know. I'm worried, though, that I've noticed that there's a thing, too, going on with Discovery. They had to have them go far into the future, so now they get to be in charge of the future of Star Trek in this weird future timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but also now they want to go back into the past and start mucking around with that now.
That's the other problem. I mean, historically, Star Trek has always been pretty good about when they do their time travel, either it definitely changes something and they're going, with it from there, or when they go into the future, they establish, well, this is a possible timeline. It may or may not happen. Best scenario or best example of that is the last episode of Next Gen, the All Good Things.
That was a great finale.
It really was a great one. And just read an article recently. Did you know that instead of there being 3 different time periods that it was supposed to take place in, they were going to do 4? They had a script that would have had him going back and being Locutus again.
Interesting.
And they decided that was just too much. Three's the limit. And that future timeline that we saw, it's implied that may not happen now.
Right.
That his knowledge of it could prevent it. But what's really interesting is that going back to Star Trek Picard Season 3, Terry Matalas didn't let that one go. And there were some elements from that future timeline that were at least homaged and nodded to as actually having come to pass. Now, the Irumodic syndrome had to be killed because Season 1 and 2 established he died and was put into a robot. So no Irumodic syndrome for him anymore.
Dumb.
I know.
So dumb.
But
I don't know if they ever figured out a way to make that work with the Season 3, because I didn't watch Season 3. But
like Geordi's history and future history and what happens with him looks like it's the same as what was outlined in All Good Things.
Okay.
And the only thing we don't get is a 3-nacelled Enterprise, but what we do get is that the Enterprise has been rebuilt, so it still exists. They got the saucer section off of whatever the planet was that Troy crashed it into.
Well, they couldn't leave it there because it was a Prime Detective planet, right? That was, that was like a industrial age. I think
that actually is a great point that a lot of fans have pointed out. But the most obvious thing is you do what you did during World War II to prevent a battleship from being taken by the enemy. You scuttle it. You make sure it's destroyed. But apparently there is some way, some part of this whole concept of the saucer separation, they're able to get the saucer intact off the planet. And they said, well, as long as we've done this, let's just take it back to space dock, and instead of making a whole new ship, we build, a replacement secondary hull for it. Okay. So they rebuilt the Enterprise, and they kind of did the little homage to Star Trek 3 where they steal the Enterprise because actually, story reasons, they actually thought it through. And so it's entirely possible that if Terry Matalas was ever able to continue with his ideas for Star Trek, you could see him add a 3rd nacelle and give Riker command.
Well, there we go.
But
you never know.
But anyway, if Star Trek, if these projects happen, I'll believe it when they happen. We've been told so many times Star Trek 4 is happening. We've been told so many times that that Section 31 is happening.
Well, that's happening. They will not let that bone go. He is obsessed. What's his name? Kurtzman.
He can keep talking about it all he wants. Until it actually happens. Look, Michelle Yeoh could say, "Screw you. I'm done. I'm not waiting for this anymore." And I hate to say this, but none of us is immortal. So eventually, some people involved with this project may not be around anymore by the time they get around to doing it.
Why is he obsessed with Section 31? Because they're like the evil Starfleet or something, like the bad people. That's why he wants to do it.
Because he's a stupid-ass emo. I don't know. I mean, none of this makes sense. All it is these people wanting to do their pet projects because, I don't know.
Me.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's move on.
Which one are we going with?
Donkey Kong.
Yes, but which one? Which
one?
I'm sorry. It's
what?
I'm looking at all the Nintendo ones, and it's
all the same to you, isn't it?
It's all the same to me. It's all Nintendo. It's all Nintendo all the time.
You need to watch that Tetris movie, because it's all about the bidding war on Tetris, and in the Cold War, but also you see that in Nintendo, and he says, "Yeah, we hate those bastards at Atari," or something like, because I think Atari said they had it, they had Tetris, and then I think Sega was trying to get it. Everybody wanted Tetris. That was the big thing. That was the game to own back then.
Makes sense.
New Mario versus Donkey Kong trailer reveals new levels and features. So yeah, this is Mario versus Donkey Kong. This was originally released on the Game Boy Advance back when Boomer here was a spry 20-something. But yeah,
I don't even remember when I was spry.
Yeah, but it was it was released on the Game Boy Advance, and what I always liked about this game was that ever since Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong got his own platforming series, we realized, you know what, him and Mario, they're not really enemies anymore. It's all under the bridge. Come on. And then they bring out this game, Mario versus Donkey Kong.
That's
and I had to have Troy watch the little movie they did in the little still movie they did in the Game Boy Advance version, where Donkey Kong is just watching TV in his house, and he's flipping on channels, and he gets to a commercial for the amazing mini Mario toy, and it says, it walks, it talks, it says "Mamma Mia," and he looks at it, and he gets the hearts in his eyes, and then he decides, I need that toy, and he goes down to the toy shop, and of course they're all sold out. Then he goes there, then he goes down to the factory and just starts and invades the factory and starts stealing all the mini Mario toys, and then Mario comes out and says, "No, you don't," and he does the "No, you don't," and this was actually a sequel to the Game Boy Donkey Kong game, and I'll try to explain to you what the Game Boy Donkey Kong game was. In the first few levels of the old black and white Game Boy, Shigeru Miyamoto, the guy that created Mario and Zelda, he made a Donkey Kong game for the Game Boy that starts out just like the arcade game. You go through the 4 levels, the barrel's rolling, he's kidnapped Pauline. After you beat the 4 levels, though, it opens up into this platform puzzle game where you have to find keys and open doors and get through levels, so it almost becomes a whole nother game after you beat the arcade game. Do you understand?
Wow, interesting.
And it was rather neat. They need to remake that one, too. Maybe one day they will do it, but this was kind of the follow-up to that. It's funny, they did a sequel to this one, right, for the DS, and that game starts out with, Mario is there at the toy factory, and I guess there's a ribbon-cutting ceremony, and guess who's next to him? It's Pauline, the woman from the original Donkey Kong arcade game. And then Donkey Kong looks up and sees Pauline. He gets the hearts in his eyes again, and he kidnaps her, and it's all over again. So,
of course.
Yeah, but those of you who have a Nintendo Switch, you're in for kind of a treat. I actually really like this game. Do you remember this game, Lemmings?
I remember Lemmings, yes!
Oh,
that was a sick game, but I loved it.
This game isn't like Lemmings, it's a sequel that is. Later mini games became where you're treating the Mario mini things like Lemmings. But this is sort of still a puzzle platforming game. It's not strictly like an action game. Like, you have to solve puzzles and get across things. Let me scroll past down this article. Sorry, my internet got all fritzy a little while back. I need to get some kind of booster for the den out here. But yeah, Nintendo has revealed new details on next month's Mario vs. Donkey Kong remaster, including some brand new modes and content. The trailer promises over 130 stages, including a pair of new worlds, later confirmed as Merry Miniland and Slippery Summit, with new obstacles and puzzles also involved. A 2-player local co-op mode with an optional Toad, and enhanced difficulty options are also available alongside a time attack mode. A casual mode will also be available in this release, in which Mario returns to the start of the stage to try again immediately. It promises a few do-overs. Mario vs. Donkey Kong is slated to launch on February 16th. Why does this game have a casual mode?
What is casual mode?
So you lose a guy. I mean, you still have to go back to the beginning of the stage. You just don't lose a life. That's the only difference. I don't know. There can be only 7. 7 what? 7 mini Marios?
No idea.
I don't know. I was thinking this is like there can be only one with him versus Donkey Kong, But I don't know. I'm a big fan of the old Nintendo characters, and I liked how this was a callback to the original Donkey Kong game too. I mean, it's kind of structured that way, with you having to jump on platforms and things coming after you. And I think he does. I think when you fight, you do their boss stages when you have to fight him and he throws things at you like the barrels and other things, So it's kind of a callback to that. So I'm glad they're doing another one, though it's a remake, but they're adding stuff to it at least.
Yeah,
The
that's
graphics
cool.
look pretty sharp. I never really cared much for the look of the old game. It had rendered style graphics, which I don't think hold up as well. So I'm glad they went with this new look. So we'll see. Now we got more other Nintendo news.
Yeah, and which one are we going with? Are we going?
I'm
with
gonna go with both. I'm only gonna read a
Oh,
little bit from the second one. All right.
okay, okay.
Like a paragraph from the second one, but there is a Zelda movie coming out, or at least in pre-production, I should say. I wanted to bring this up too because this is almost an address to Doomcock's recent video about this. Um, Apparently, there were people over at Sony Studios. I know it's Nintendo, but Sony is helping produce this movie, and there were people on the board that kept trying to make. There's a rumor going around. This is rumor. This is he got this from someone on the inside, so you can take this with a grain of salt. I think there's a ring of truth to this because it sounds like something that would actually happen. I've noticed that properties where the creators or the owners of the properties are involved, they don't turn out as woke. Reacher is an example of this on Amazon. I have a suspicion Lee Child gets a lot of final
say, I think is what he meant to say.
I think the same goes for Harry Potter to a degree because I think J.K. Rowling maintains a lot of control over that as well.
Yes, agreed. I'm with you so far, Boomer. Well, we're losing you again, so I might end up having to. Yeah, I might have to end up reading this article for you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Welcome back. I can hear you.
Why does this keep happening to me? I'll try to fix this by last week. Nobody likes a whiner. I know that's people in the chat thinking. I'll try to read it. Okay, can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you so far.
Let me know if I tap out again. Okay.
Yeah.
Legend of Zelda may be a massive open-world game, but our little hero is about to enter an even larger universe, the real world. According to Nintendo, a live-action Legend of Zelda film will produced by Shigeru Miyamoto is in development. Wes Bell, director of Maze Runner series and the upcoming Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, will helm the project. Nintendo will partner with Sony to distribute the movie, as well as producer Avi Arad, Venom, Uncharted, and screenwriter Derek Connolly. Going on to quote, I've been working on a live-action film of The Legend of Zelda for many years now with Avi Arad-san, who has produced many mega films. Miyamoto wrote on X, formerly Twitter. It will take time until its completion, but I hope you look forward to seeing it. To my knowledge, Link has never uttered a single word in the video games outside of a couple of expression-filled grunts. So The Legend of Zelda might follow the Super Mario Brothers movie and become another journey in questionable acting choices. However, they find the perfect Link. If they find the perfect, well, there aren't many details about the film itself. It looks like Mario and Sonic are about to have another friend at the movies. What do you think so far? You could hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It sounds interesting. I mean, I'm not a huge, Link fan, but if it's good, I'm certainly interested in checking it out.
It's basically heroic fantasy, but it's gotten its own personality, its own world building over the years that it's kind of its unique thing now.
Yeah.
Whereas I think earlier on it was more slay the dragon, defeat the evil, demon lord, but now it's gotten more personality as the games have gone on. Like more races have been introduced into the world, so it has its own mythos. So I think it'll be good. And let's read from the next one. Go to post the next one.
Okay.
Let's do that.
Here we go. There you go.
But the main reason I did this, I just want to warn y'all, if you start hearing reports that this is woke, it could be the people who were angry about the fact that it isn't woke within Sony are now spreading this rumor around. Basically,
honestly, this has become the new woke marketing. It's this whole anti-woke concept. They are the woke aren't getting their way, so they go, let's just go call it woke so it fails. Which in a way is them acknowledging that their method is a losing battle.
Don't let them use us against stuff that isn't woke, that actually is trying to be entertaining product. Find out first. I know it's tricky these days because it seems like everything we love has been torn apart, but Nintendo has final say in this movie. Nintendo doesn't want to damage its brand, at least not this game. So I think they're going to try to make a good movie out of this. We'll see how it turns out, and I don't think it's going to be woke. can't see Nintendo signing off on that. What we've heard was someone inside Nintendo was warning people that this is going to start coming out, that people are going to start calling this movie woke. Don't fall for it. So I'm going to trust Nintendo, or at least trust this rumor and this person, that they know what they're doing, and let's wait and see. But there's an update, because we had the Winter CES this week. Do you remember the Winter CES years ago, how that was a big thing?
No, I don't actually even know what that is. Sorry.
The Winter Consumer Electronics Show.
Oh yeah, no, I've never heard of that.
The Summer Consumer Electronics Show.
Well,
see, you weren't in the console gaming back in the day. This was what we had before E3.
Right.
You would wait for that magazine to hit the store shelves, and it would be Winter CES preview, and you'd get to see what is coming out in the future. That's where I found out about Splatterhouse 2 from Winter CES issue.
Oh, okay.
The sequel to Splatterhouse 1. Do you know what Splatterhouse is?
No.
We'll talk about that another time. Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
How do you not know Splatterhouse? It never. Actually, it did come out on computers, but only in Japan. But okay.
Yeah, that's why.
Sony CEO gives first update on Legend of Zelda movie CES 2024. During the recent CES show, Sony CEO Kenichiro Yoshida, as reported by Twisted Voxel, mentioned the Legend of Zelda movie, saying it's an amazing tale of adventure and discovery, marking the first statement since Shigeru Miyamoto announced the film. I would assume it would be about amazing adventure and discovery, right?
Yeah, it sounds like it
most
should be.
Of these types of movies should be.
Right.
The Dark Crystal, that was about amazing adventure and discovery, right?
Yes.
And that's coming up a few weeks on Netter's network, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. But yeah, just here was the rumor we heard on Doomcox. You can find his video online. At these companies, at these studios, there are certain people sitting on the board, and these certain people work for these big investment firms. You probably heard their names in the newsfeed before, and they're the ones putting their foot down. This is why when people complain about at Disney, how about the people who are pushing a lot of this ESG stuff are not necessarily people who are invested in the company making a profit. They're investing on pushing this message. I know it doesn't make any sense. My only think is that these investment firms have so much money that they don't care about making the money anymore. Now it's about doing something else for society.
Yep.
Does that make any sense?
It doesn't make any sense.
Change society through pushing.
But it is exactly what is happening. You're right.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to another. I'm hopefully creator-controlled series.
You know, you sent me this article. I read the title and I totally misread it, and I was like, "Riddick 4 what?"
Furia. That's where his people are from.
Furia is a little bit different than what I thought it said.
You thought it was something else?
Yeah,
that may be a line in the movie.
Okay.
I don't know.
Could be.
These movies.
Could be.
You remember Chronicles of Riddick when the little girl goes up and says, "Are you going to stop the monsters?" "I am the monster." Remember when he said that?
Yeah. It was a great line. It really was.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Of course not. I've gone out again, haven't I?
No, you haven't. Have I? Are you guys now not hearing me? Hello? Hello? I can hear you, or I did hear you until you...
I can hear both you and Boomer.
I know, but he couldn't hear me apparently. So in other words, he had upload, but he didn't have download.
I heard Netter.
Good.
Briefly,
so yes, good. You could because we heard you the whole time and deleted scenes saying I can hear you both. You just couldn't hear me.
Okay, it's like in the original movie, The Fly, when the cat gets teleported but doesn't show up in the other teleportation device, and he hears the meowing in the ether. That's where we were.
Exactly. You're
You were in another
exactly right.
dimension. The original Fly is a great science fiction movie. It's creepy as all get. Okay, Riddick 4. Any Riddick fans in the chat?
I actually like the first two movies. I haven't seen the third movie.
You'll like the third one. The third one is kind of, I don't want to say like it's a callback to the first one, but it's another one where he ends up getting stranded on an alien world and has to get off. And
Makes
bounty
sense.
hunters are after him. You know how he does it? He basically just says, you know what? Hey, I'm Riddick. I'm here. He finds something to call them with because he needs a ship.
Yeah.
Calls the bounty hunters there. I don't want to spoil too much more of the movie for you. But it's neat because like the first part of the movie is almost him against the elements trying to survive, and then it's him trying to figure a way off the planet. It was good. I liked Riddick 4, but here we go. Riddick 3. Riddick 3, which names was Riddick. Riddick 4, which name will be Riddick Furia, maybe?
I'll take your word for it. That's what it looks like to me, anyway.
More than a decade after the previous Riddick, fans still want to know if Riddick 4 Furia is happening with Vin Diesel returning for it. So here's all that's known about the possibility of the Fast and the Furious star returning to Richard B. Riddick in another outing. Vin Diesel is confirmed to return as Riddick when the next sequel Furia happens. As per reliable scooper Daniel RPK's Patreon, Riddick 4 Furia is set to begin production in 2024 and has a rumored budget of $70 million. But nothing is officially confirmed at the moment. Since 2013's Riddick, Vin Diesel putting subtitled Furia over the years. The last update for the sequel came out in May 2023 when Diesel shared a concept for
let's see here. Where is he at? When?
Per the storyline revealed for Furia, Riddick finally returns to his homeworld, a place he barely remembers and one he fears might be left in ruins by the Necromongers. But there he finds other Furians fighting for their existence against a new enemy, and some of these Furians are more like Riddick than he could have ever imagined. Not many Riddick 4 updates have arrived in recent times. However, we expect to get more concrete information on the film in 2024. If Daniel RPK scoop is true, then we release date. So it looks like there's keen interest in this project. I know Vin Diesel loves playing this character, so it's not surprising he wants to come back for more. I know that I think the director had 2 more storylines left in him, so this might be one of them. But I don't know. So you like the first 2 movies?
Yes, I did. And guys, I do recommend maybe when we share this article, go ahead and open up that article in another tab, because that'll make it a lot easier. When Boomer cuts out in the middle of a sentence, you could just be following along with us.
Did I cut out?
A couple times during that article, yeah.
My word,
I had to
I'm
pull it up,
sorry.
and I was starting to try to find where you were, and then you came back in.
I'm sorry about that. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know what's with the
about it.
internet
It's
right
just
now.
the way it is.
Well, it's annoying, and I'll try to fix it for next time. But
I
don't know.
I don't even know if it's something you can fix. I mean,
It better be, because man, I know this has happened to deleted scenes sometimes too, and it's annoying. Let's move on to the next article. Anyway, Riddick 4, it's happening. Okay, probably.
and I have the wrong article queued up. Hold on a second.
Yes, David Trohe said he's on to write and direct. Yes, you could hear me there, right?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, David Trohe's back. No, they're partnered on this. Vin Diesel loves the character. He wouldn't do it without Trohe, I'm sure. So it said in the article Trohe's writing the script right now. So
Okay.
Trohe's a weird guy. He reminds me of like an old school science fiction or pulp writer when I saw him in his interviews. You know.
Sorry, man. I just put up the wrong article. Can we?
Well, yeah. Oh, let's go back. Yes, let's get rid of it.
Give me a second. I can't.
Oh no, I didn't get rid of that heart, did I?
This is what happens when you don't get rid of that heart. It's important.
I know it's important. Sorry, I forgot it.
Give me a second until I get the next one up.
Anyways,
Come on, open up.
While you're doing that, I'll see if I can edit it.
There we go.
You got it there?
I will. Yeah, thanks, deleted scenes.
Okay. No, that's not it. Hold on. And I'll see if I can edit my stream while you're doing that to get rid of that. I know it was on the left. I believe it was in customization.
Mm-hmm.
And it was under
Live reaction.
Live
or something
reactions.
like that?
Click off of it. Save it.
Mhm.
Okay. It's gone now. Sorry.
There you
I
go.
meant to do that before the
Live
stream.
reaction, then save, then go
I even
back.
thought of it last night. You got to do that before the stream, and then I forgot about it today. Top Gun confirmed with Tom Cruise returning an iconic role. And it's gone. Thank you, deleted scenes. And oh wait, let's go back. Here we go.
There we go.
We're all sunglasses tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so yeah, here we go. Tom Cruise returns. Tom Cruise set to reprise his role as Pete Maverick Mitchell in third Top Gun movie. The 61-year-old action star first played the character in 1986's Top Gun and returned in 2022 for Top Gun Maverick, which was a massive successful box office hit. We knew there was going to be a third one. Come on. After the box office did, Paramount needs money. Now, Puck reports that Paramount has commissioned Top Gun Maverick screenwriter Ehren Kruger to start work on a third installment in the franchise. Additionally, sources told Hollywood Reporter that the studio also plans for director Joseph Kosinski to return and for Cruise to reunite with his co-stars Glenn Powell and Miles Teller. While it's no surprise that Paramount would look to repeat the success of Top Gun Maverick, the news has caused some eyebrows to be raised in Hollywood as Cruise recently signed a new deal with rival studios Warner Brothers. Cruise will develop and star in films for Warner Brothers, but the contract is non-exclusive, so the star can continue working on Top Gun 3 at Paramount. What's he doing for Warner Brothers?
I'm not sure, but what is the connection between Warner Brothers and Paramount? Could very well be a merger in the near future.
Oh, that's right.
So this may not be as big an issue as it might at first appear.
Yeah, so as surprised no one, we're getting a Maverick 3. I did like Maverick, the second Top Gun. I thought it was good, so it's the best movie that summer. We didn't really have a repeat of that, I think, over this past summer, really. I guess there was the Barbenheimer thing, but not really. One of those wasn't to my taste, at least.
You know, a lot of people are still saying this, that Tom Cruise might be the last of the Hollywood stars.
Yeah. Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And I mean, there's big names, but nobody cares about them anymore.
No, we have other names. We have Robert Downey Jr., but again, I think he's older. He's old. He's an older star too.
They're still talking about, and I was going to include an article about him possibly coming back as Iron Man, but honestly, there's no sense even talking about it until there's some official announcement. I don't think he's going to do it. I think he's well done and over it, just like I don't believe that Michelle Yeoh's coming back for Star Trek. These are people that have won the awards, that have built their career, that can write their own ticket. Hell, they can probably afford to make their own damn movies if they want to. And Robert Downey Jr. has gone on to be doing all kinds of different things that aren't Iron Man. He doesn't need it anymore. So what? It's going to be like an Indiana Jones thing where they back up a truck of money to him. That's the only way they're going to get him back. And then it's going to tank because he's not going to have enough draw to get people to reinvest in something they've walked away from for almost a decade. So they're still going to have losses. Just saying. Anyway. But Tom Cruise is, like I said, I think one of the last Hollywood personalities who really is a, what would you call it? A cinematic draw.
A movie star.
Know? Yeah.
Yeah, even Stallone, as much as I like him, they're not liking him these days. He gets in movies occasionally. He's doing more television stuff now. So
yeah.
I don't know. Because he got kicked out of the Rocky franchise. I don't know if he's going to come back for a Rambo movie, but I don't know.
Oh, here we go.
You're not happy about this.
No, I'm not.
I thought this would be right up your alley. I thought you'd be excited, and then you were not happy. Okay, 40 years after Purple Rain topped the box office, winning an Oscar for its iconic soundtrack and solidifying Prince's status as the High Priest of Pop, new stage adaptation of the film classic is in the works, based on the original screenplay by Albert Magnoli and William Blinn. The stage version will feature a book by Brandon Jacob Jenkins, a two-time Pulitzer Prize finalist who is currently taking Broadway by storm with the critically heralded Appropriate. Elena Blase Cruz, a Tony Award nominee who recently oversaw Lincoln Center's acclaimed revival of The Skin of Our Teeth, will direct the show. Additional production details and timing will be announced in the coming months, the show's producer said. We can't think of a more fitting tribute than to honor Prince and the Purple Rain legacy with this stage adaptation of the beloved story, said L. Londell McMillan, chairman of the North Star Group and Larry Messel, founder and CEO of Primary Wave Music. We are thrilled with our Broadway partners and creative team who are bringing the theatricality to the film's original fictional story. We can't wait for a new generation to discover Purple Rain and for lovers of the original film and album to experience its power once again, this time live. So you are not nonplussed, it sounds.
Yeah, Prince had a history of. Yeah, I mean, let's face it. He was a musical genius.
Mm-hmm.
Even his cinematic forays that people have mixed feelings about, whether it's a Graffiti Bridge, Under the Cherry Moon, and so forth. But Purple Rain was definitely a successful box office film. Every one of his movies, the soundtracks was a huge seller, regardless of how the movie did. But we're also talking about an era of his career where, and this was true of a lot of the greatest artists, David Bowie too, went through this kind of crap too, where you just find yourself a slave of the music studio, in this case Warner Brothers. And that whole era where he went by the
artist formerly known as Prince.
Well, yeah, he changed his name legally to a non-pronounceable symbol, forcing people to come up with pseudonyms for him, like the artist formerly known as Prince, or the artist, or TAFCAP, which is an acronym for the artist formerly known as Prince. It was all his way of making things as miserable for Warner Brothers as possible. And he finally got away from Warner Brothers, but he was sick and tired of them getting the lion's share of the money for his work, right? This is a thing that comes up over and over again. We'll talk about it with comic book artists. We talk about it with writers, people that create characters for TV shows, whatever it is. It's very, very unfair. And now that he's gone, the jackals are back again, picking up, finding ways to recycle his work to enrich themselves. And honestly, the movie is the movie. This was the medium it was meant to be in. He never would have wanted it to be a Broadway live production. I mean, if he did, it would have been something that he did.
He would have done himself.
He would have done himself with his band, maybe, but I don't think he would have, because he had moved on. He's been through so many bands since then. It was the Revolution. It was the New Power Generation. He had all these, and the people that had done Purple Rain had moved on to do other things. They might have come back for like a revival renewal if he had asked them to, but he didn't generally go back and revisit, stuff that he'd already done. He was on to new stuff. No, I don't think Prince would feel honored by this. He would feel used again. And no, I'm not happy about this. When it does release, I'll probably do a watch party of the original movie and say, you know what, this is how it was meant to be experienced.
It'd be great if they could just do a theatrical re-release of it, maybe.
Yes, that would be the way to honor him. That would actually be a decent way to honor him. Still, making money off the back of his work, but, at least in the way he envisioned it. No, here we go again.
More sunglasses. I figured since I did, I
You're
had
just
done
sticking with the sunglasses, right?
Well, I'd done 3 already, so I figured I need Connery with sunglasses. There we go. That's from Thunderball, which is not one of the movies with the warning.
Yet.
This is terrible. This is just.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to get the.
I'm wondering if that heart thing they put in there was done purposely to trip people like you and I up while trying to do this sort of thing.
Because YouTube hates us? Yeah, probably.
Maybe YouTube doesn't want you putting links to other things or other channels or something. I don't know.
No, because let's face it, it really does cause more problems in regards to the moderators trying to deal with stuff, and I don't know.
Okay, it could just be incompetence too. There's always that.
Yeah. It's they just don't care. They didn't think it through, and they don't care.
So the British Film Institute (BFI) places trigger warnings on screenings of classic James Bond films. Will cause offense. That could be a subtitle for a James Bond film. Will cause offense.
I would actually laugh at that. That would be brilliant. I would love to see the next James Bond film called James Bond Will Cause Offense.
Yeah. So anyway, this is from Fox News, but it was all over the internet. And hold on, where is it? Let me get back up here. So yeah, the British Film Institute has provided multiple trigger warnings for audiences ahead of its upcoming season of classic film screenings, in tribute to British film composer John Barry, including James Bond movies. As media outlets, The Guardian and the Daily Mail reported this week, the films shown at the upcoming John Barry soundtrack in Bond and Beyond, BFI season have been given a disclaimer warning that they will cause offense. What does SIC mean when they say that? Will cause offense, sick.
It's a term that means there's something that comes before that's misspelled or improper grammar, and they're saying that we're quoting exactly the way it was.
Maybe that's
it's not our mistake; it's theirs.
That, or that's how they write in England. Maybe that's how they spell offense in England.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Okay. After these screenings are the two Sean Connery era Bond flicks, which Barry provided music for, 1967's You Only Live Twice, and 1964's Goldfinger. I believe you recently sang Goldfinger on your channel, didn't you?
I did, just the week before last for my birthday, and I got a lot of compliments on it. I was actually shocked by that fact.
Yeah, I tend to like the songs that are about the villains. Like I think Man with the Golden Gun, Lulu sang that one. That was about another Bond villain. The disclaimer, which can be found on BFI's website, says that many of these films contain language, images, and other content that reflect views prevalent in its time, but will cause offense today as they did then. Well, maybe they didn't cause offense then. I don't understand that. The website added the titles are included here for historical, cultural, and aesthetic reasons, and these views are in no way endorsed by the BFI or its partners. Yeah, because you're a bunch of lame asses. I mean, uncool people, not lame. Lame is offensive.
Agreed.
All right.
100%.
The site featured descriptions of each film in the season, a lineup which also included Midnight Cowboy. That's a classic. The Ipcris File, that's a good one, and Petulia. I've not seen Petulia, but those other two are very good. Some of the films on this schedule received an extra disclaimer in its description. You Only Live Twice received a specific warning, which said contains outdated racial stereotypes. You mean the Japanese actors in the movie acted Japanese, and the way people in Japan did in the 1960s? And again, I don't think anyone in Japan complained about that movie. Anyway, Midnight Cowboy received one which stated contains use of a homophobic language and sexual violence. An extra disclaimer was also given to Petulia, which said contains scenes of domestic violence.
You know, it used to be that if you put an R rating on something, that was enough of a friggin' trigger warning. Warning.
Petulia,
you go to see it, you expect to be offended, get bad language, get offensive language, get nudity, violence, whatever.
Midnight Cowboy had an X rating. It actually got thrown an X rating.
Yeah.
And back in the day, it's not for the faint of heart.
When you have a rating system like that and you go R rating, X rating, okay, I'm fine with it. Let's see what this movie's about. Oh. I don't need any further trigger warnings. I don't need you to stop the movie and say, now, they're going to say a bad word. Just so you know, just be prepared for it. I'm already prepared for it. I paid my money and I saw what the rating was. Get the out of here.
Have you seen Midnight Cowboy?
Yes.
Brilliant movie. I know one of the scenes they're referring to, and it's like he's supposed to be the naive country guy in the big city, but then you look at his flashbacks and you think, no, there was some bad stuff going out in the country too.
Yep,
It's not
that's
just.
true.
In addition to the warnings on the website, British outlet The Telegraph reported that one could also be found outside BFI cinema in London. A BFI spokesperson provided Fox News Digital with more details about its disclaimer on Thursdays. They said trigger warnings pop up at point of sale when confirming tickets, which is inside the venue, at the box office area, and appear in our print ads and the website copy related to this season. We do issue trigger warnings for other films and screen work that we show where appropriate. Justifying these warnings, the spokesperson cited a study stating in 2021 survey conducted by the British Board of Film Classification found that almost 2/3 of teenagers polled supported trigger warnings on films which might negatively affect their mental health.
Okay, now I'd like them to follow up on that. How many of those dumbass whipped teenagers actually not see a movie because it got a trigger warning? I will bet you that every single one of them still saw it so that they could bitch about it later on social media.
You know what? I remember when you and I were younger and we would try to sneak and watch R-rated movies and the movies that parents told us not to watch, and now these kids are wanting to be protected from the harmful movies. It's
Yep.
But
I said, they will still go see it. But because of the trigger warning, they're going to go see it so that they can then tweet about it or X about it, I suppose, and complain. Oh my gosh, this was so offensive to me. I'm struggling now.
I can't believe a man.
You know what? We need some bleach in the gene pool. We really do. We need Darwin to do his work. If you are too snowflake to survive, sorry, there's nothing we can do for you.
I don't get the.
Someone called you a bad word. Too damn bad.
They're gonna look
Flip
at all
them off and keep walking.
They're gonna look at every John Barry.
I'm walking here. You see what I did there?
Yeah, the great Dustin Hoffman. That was his big line in that movie. Who I think got.
And it was improv. It was improv because that driver wasn't supposed to be there. and didn't know they were filming a movie.
I'm walking here. Oh man,
that was brilliant improv. And if you look at what's his name, Angelina Jolie's dad,
John Voight.
John Voight. His reaction is like, okay, I'll just keep going with it. When you know and you see it, you're like, you can't unsee it. I'm sorry. Okay, I just got off on a tangent.
I realized with the John Voight's flaw in that movie, his character flaw in that.
See, David got it. He caught it.
How funny. He was honest. His character was actually honest.
Yeah.
I mean, even though he wanted to become a male gigolo in New York City, which maybe not the best career path.
Right.
Especially what you see in that movie.
I was going to say, especially in New York City, but yeah.
I remember Dustin Hoffman says, I have a manager I want you to meet, this guy named McIntyre. And then he leaves him at this guy McIntyre's McIntyre. And it's just some nutcase that he knew.
Yeah.
And he took his money.
Yeah.
Oh, look, I'll give you some back. Look, I got 30 cents here. It's all yours.
Oh, God.
It's a brilliant movie. Watch that and watch Taxi Driver right after it. You get to see the beginning of
God. And then come back to me and talk to me about trigger warnings and, safe spaces and all that bullshit.
Oh, my goodness.
This is the other thing. These people that need trigger warnings on their movies are not equipped to deal with the real fucking world. They are just not.
I don't know what happened. I have a theory, though, in some of these households, maybe their parents said, you can watch the Disney Channel, but nothing else. Maybe that conditioned them not to, ease into this stuff. I don't get it.
It's one or the other. It's either parents completely absent, letting their kids absorb life from social media and Disney, or it's the opposite. You have these helicopter parents protecting them from everything, making them believe this is the way life should be. Don't know.
I'm offended by the British Film Institute.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
agree
could
with
be
you.
wrong. Is this the same organization that kept interfering with Hammer Productions back in the '60s? Because I know I might have been BFI. Like they couldn't get proper ratings. Like they would be forbidden from doing certain projects. They originally wanted to do a Spanish Inquisition movie, which
Oh, jeez.
I don't know what, but something I think it was at the BFI or some other institution over there, and they were like, "No, the script is not okayed by us. You're not going to get
I
rating. You're not
wonder
going to get a
why,
rating."
because you'd think Britain would be
Okay, because
anti-Catholic
they're
enough.
Anglican because of the whole
Yeah.
yeah, but they know. I think they just found the script. I don't think it was because of the political stuff. I think it was because, or there is. I think it was just because it was a lot of probably scenes of horrible torture and stuff. And what happened
Probably.
was they had already started working on the sets and costumes for it. Then they decided to make a movie called Curse of the Werewolf, and they just used the sets and the costume, and it took place in Spain. And it was a werewolf story, but it took place in Spain instead.
Yeah.
But that was originally supposed to be the Spanish Inquisition movie.
Interesting.
Isn't that interesting? So they still made it work, and it's a good werewolf movie. The Curse of the Werewolf. It had that one actor in it, not Peter Cushing or Christopher Lee, the one who was in. He died during the production of Gladiator. British actor.
Yeah, I know exactly.
I always forget his name, and it's driving me nuts. But yeah, he was the werewolf in it.
Yep.
But yeah, but it's
right,
it's a good little flick. But BFI. I remember though when I was on I was listening to one streamer podcast once when the whole French Connection censorship happened, and the one guy on there, he basically said, you know what, at the beginning I was on board with the trigger warnings at first because he figured, okay, these are just the warnings, and then he says, no, this is what it leads to. I was wrong. This is now leading to full on censorship, and trigger warnings were bad. Oliver Reed, thank you. Yeah, he was the werewolf in that. Okay, time to get to DC.
Oh God, here we
you
go
like
again.
the picture I have up there? Huh?
Well, more of this, effed up generation.
This is disturbing to me on a whole lot of. This is from Fandom Pulse as well. I guess they're doing good stuff, and you can actually post their entire. Are they as bad as Bounty in the comics with their
possibly?
Okay, never mind then. They're not as long, though, the articles at least. So here we go. Marvel and DC Comics have abused comic book readers for the longest time. The comic industry keeps lowering the bar of the products and destroying beloved characters like Spider-Man, Batman, X-Men, and more with ideas that would never have been approved by what-if stories by editors in the 80s, let alone be part of the main continuity. In a recent interview with Popverse, Batman and Robin writer Joshua Williamson admits the comic book industry upsets fans intentionally as a cynical marketing ploy. The comic industry is dying. Nearly every year, there's a news story about a beloved comic shop closing down, more recently in Comic Town, Ohio, becoming a casualty of the industry's antics over the last several years. It became a comic industry secret as to why, if you are any comic shop owner behind closed doors, they'll tell you no one wants to read the diversity, high replacement characters of beloved classic books. But Marvel and DC Comics writers keep pushing them on comics readers. Fans can't help but wonder why Marvel and DC Comics keep doing this. There have been countless discussions where comic book readers have begged writers to create their own characters and stop trying to replace old ones.
Yet look what happened when they finally did. They come up with Safe Space and whatever its sister was. Snowflake and Safe Space. Yeah, those went over like a freaking lead. I can't even say a lead balloon. It was like a lead shot.
You know, lead makes me think of gunfire, and that's triggering.
Too damn bad. Second Amendment's still a thing, my friend.
Fans can't help but wonder why Marvel... Okay, here we go. Let me see. Here's the quote from Joshua Williamson. When people are happy, they spend less, Joshua Williamson said about the comic books he writes. It sucks, but it's a pattern that I've seen in my time at DC. It's not just about, I want to piss people off, Joshua Williamson continued. He then talked about putting characters on roller coasters and vague statements about his writing styles. It may not be just about upsetting fans, but it's a large portion of what they attempt to do, something a far cry from Stan Lee and company used to do when making their stories. Joshua Williamson admits it's all cynical marketing ploy in the comics industry, stating sometimes people get really angry and they spend money. I'm not buying any of this. Does this really result in increased sales? Because is this what they're trying to excuse it as?
I wouldn't know if because I don't know the numbers. I could see a
I think
small little.
the Death of Superman comic sold a lot. I remember that when that came out.
That was such a different thing, though.
Yeah.
That actually gets a bad rap as being gimmicky, and
Yeah.
it was not intended to be gimmicky.
No.
It was more intended as well. Actually, it started out as a bit of a joke in the storyboarding room.
Yeah.
But it was also an answer to them trying to work out synergy. We all talk about how there was for so long no synergy between cartoons and movies and comic books and whatnot, and they were literally trying to build a narrative synergy between Lois and Clark, which was on TV at the time, and the story they were doing in the comics related to the marriage of Lois and Clark. And they wanted them to take place at about the same time so they could, do like a unified promotion for it. But the only way they could do that, because of the way the shooting schedule was and all that kind of stuff, was they had to eat up a year of comic book story that would have no development of Lois and Clark's relationship in the comics.
Yes.
They were planning to get married, but now we're going to ignore that we're planning to do that for the next year. So they said, well, let's kill off Superman. And it came up as a joke.
Yeah.
And they were like, hey, well, wait a minute. What if we kill him off? It would be a big deal, be a great story. We could work it out over a year. Of course, we're planning on bringing him back. And then what's the first thing he's going to do when he gets back? I'm going to marry the woman I love, It was brilliant. And
they had that on the Superman Doomsday DVD, which was an animated version of that story. They had the documentary about what happened, and they actually interviewed the comic book creators at the time and what they did in the comics, and they explained it. They, just like you said, it was a whole Lois and Clark thing. Remember that?
Okay, full disclosure, I do have that DVD.
It's on there. You should watch the documentary.
I was just going to say, I've never actually watched it. I have a lot of those animated Superman stories that we picked up.
Yeah. We
either won or whatever when we were down in Metropolis. Just haven't watched them yet. But I had heard a bunch of accounts of that story, so yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, you don't even have to watch, if you don't want to watch the animated movie, you can just watch the documentary, and there is really just about the comic book anyway.
Yeah.
So, but but that's different than what they're doing now. I keep hearing this expression, hate watching.
Yeah.
Do customers really hate watch, and do people hate read these comics? They just, I want to see how they're ruining.
So that was what I was getting to about the comics.
On it. I don't buy it.
You could convince me that there's a little blip of, pink-haired weirdos that go buy the comic book that talks about Green Lantern being gay because, we got to support the message, right? But it's not like they're going to continue buying those comics. They're just not, because this is not an interest for them. It never was. All they care about is gay this and gay that.
Yeah.
They're too busy, like I said, getting their hair colored unnatural colors and piercing things and cutting things off and, getting rainbow flags. Yeah. So this is not a sustainable business model. But going back to your initial premise, where you don't even believe that's the case, it's not sustainable, and it may not even be the case. It is just their justification is all it is. They're justifying what they're doing because, again, they just want to keep their job. And they're saying, well, I'm doing this to keep comics alive because, Kelly Sue DeConnick said, if you don't like my politics, don't buy my book. And people aren't buying her book. 2 years later, we're really concerned because the comic book industry is contracting. No shit, Sherlock! You told everyone not to buy your book! And they're not!
You know what I don't understand? Those DC animated movies, right? Now, maybe I didn't buy as many of the comics, but I used to buy those animated movies. And when that was going strong and I was happy with the product, I would buy the subsequent release on launch day. Whenever they would come out, I would buy another one.
What's great about those and
They were
most
really
of
supposed to be based on the comics too. Those ones
yes,
were more so
most
than
of
the
them I
animated
only
series.
saw because
They were supposed to be like
you know,
direct adaptations of the actual comics. Yeah.
you and Mr. Matchstick and others have said you should check these out, and I do. Like I say, I got them on my shelf, and then I just watch them, right? And I'm like, yeah, these are, you know, cartoon adaptations of the comic books.
Yes.
If they just do this with the fucking movies, we wouldn't be having this, you know, oh, we got to reboot because nobody likes the Snyderverse. Oh, now we got James Gunn and nobody's going to like that either. You know, it's...
Snyder did. He did the Death of Superman with also the Dark Knight Returns and mashed them together.
Yeah, exactly. and you ended up with Tuvix is what you ended up with, you know?
All right. You're on fire tonight, David Pensek is saying. Isn't that nice? All right. Next article. Battlestar Galactica. You know,
unfortunately,
to quote Star Wars, I've got a bad feeling about this.
I've been kind of spoiled by the sci-fi series of Battlestar Galactica, because now when I see these old Cylons, I think of what was that video game Berserk? Chicken fight like a robot.
Is that from the video game Berserk?
Yeah. You remember that?
No.
Where you're running through the maze fighting robots?
No, I never played Berserk.
Really?
I bet it was on the Atari 800 though.
I don't know if it was or not, but I played it at the arcade, and I always thought, you know, chicken fight like a robot, and I always associated that in my mind with Battlestar Galactica.
I used to play Wizard of War. Anyway, Battlestar Galactica, Derek Simon set as new showrunner, a Peacock reboot in works from producer Sam Ismail.
Yeah.
Let me read about this. There is a new writer to helm Peacock's long gestating reboot of the popular sci-fi franchise Battlestar Galactica. The Sinner creator Derek Simmons has come on board as writer, executive producer, and showrunner. Battlestar Galactica, which remains in development at Peacock, has been a small passion project for Mr. Robot creator Sam Esmail, a big fan of the original, whose company Esmail Corp is producing the reboot through UCP, where the company is based. First announced as being in development at NBC Universal streamer Peacock in 2019, the Battlestar Galactica reimagining previously had Michael Leslie attached to write and executive produce, a new take on the classic IP. The latest incarnation is executive producer I. Simmons as well as Ismail Corp, Sam Ismail, and Chad Hamilton. UCP, a division of Universal Studios, is the studio. Okay, we are working on it. Ismail told Deadline in October about the Battlestar Galactica series reboot, and in fact, I just read a great outline, and it's in great shape because the strike is over now. At least the WGA strike is over, and we're back into developing it. What do we think?
Okay.
I know what Deleted Scenes thinks. Okay, so we had a very successful reboot of it already, correct? On
yes,
Sci-Fi.
we did.
I think people
and
were
it
all
makes
liking
me
it.
wonder why bother doing it a third time. I've even heard people say, why, if you're gonna reboot anything, why don't you go reboot Buck Rogers? That would be something to reboot.
But they don't have the rights to that, probably.
Probably not. My everything that I would say about this, I can't because of one word: reboot. Reboot implies remake, but doesn't mean remake. It could very well be. This would be a reboot of Battlestar Galactica. They go back to the original Battlestar Galactica, recast all the roles, and continue the same story.
Yes.
Of the original Battlestar Galactica.
Yes. I think maybe ignore 80.
Yeah, exactly. Probably
Ignore
that
80.
would probably be the way to go. That would be a reboot and not a remake. But it could also be a remake. It could be a third, start all over again with a bunch of people, Lee Adama, taking his spaceship, Battlestar Galactica, and helping everybody to evacuate the 12 colonies, searching for Earth, and just doing it all over again. Technically, that would be a reboot as well. If that's the case, then I'm totally with Steve, and just don't do it again. Find something else. Do something new.
You could go ahead. Yeah. Well, theoretically, I mean, let's go back to Rogue One when Rogue One came out. Well, whatever, however you might have felt about that movie, the director of it, the people behind it, were being very careful to adhere to the aesthetics of A New Hope.
Yeah.
Just how Vader looked and everything else. If they were to do that with this new cast, as Boomer and Starbuck and all them, but
right.
And Apollo, like you'd have to recast, but maybe cast actors with a similar vibe to them. And
Boomer better be an older black man then. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
that kind of a thing.
You would cast a black actor in his role. I guess the Adamas, anybody would go with Latino though because of the name, right? I don't know. Or you go either way probably with them. I don't know. What do you think?
Lee Adama could go anyway. He could be white. He could be Latin. He could be... But it still has to be male, right? And
yes.
You need them to be... Yes. You don't need to find someone who looks exactly like the actor, but enough for you to know, okay, you're recasting, but...
You'd have to have the robot, the weird dog
That's
thing.
the key. Oh, jeez. You'd have to have that damn... Moffat or whatever it was.
Okay, here's my theory. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt and think that they want to do a series that's going to make some money. I don't even know if this would make money, but maybe they're looking for their own version of what Disney does with its Star Wars shows, making it a more family-friendly project.
Yeah. Having
the Centurions back with a more iconic look.
Yeah.
Having a good villainous Baltar again.
Oh, Daggett. I thought it was Moffat.
He was still kind of a villain on the reboot series. He was just... Actually, you know what I'll say about the Baltar on the reboot series?
Yeah.
I loved watching him squirm.
Yeah. So, if you're going to do...
in that part.
If you... Look, they always say go big or go home, right? If you're going to do this thing, did the article say what platform they were going to do this on?
Peacock.
Okay. Here's what they need to do.
That's Universal streaming service.
They need to they got to go back to the marketing plan from the original Battlestar Galactica. Do your pilot episode as a 2-hour movie and release it in theaters.
It could almost be a recreation of the original pilot, and then maybe you could just carry on but do new stories. You know what I'm saying? Like it could be seen as a. If
you do it like that, and you have a successful film, then maybe you could justify people going, oh, okay, I like that so much, I think I will subscribe to this, extortionate streaming service in order to keep watching their proprietary, whatever. That would be the only way I could see this working. If you're just starting something on Peacock, well, God bless you, I'll never see it.
I don't know, though. I thought Peacock at one point had a free tier where you would be able to watch it with commercials. I don't know if they still have that, but I thought they had different tiers. And
even if they did have that, you watch. Eventually, it's going to become, now you're going to have to pay for this service, and you're still going to get commercials. You got to pay more if you want no commercials.
We'll see. I mean, they can't do it tonally like the sci-fi series because it's not going to be received as well. If they would just make it action adventure like the original series, and just make it how Star Wars should be now. Like this could be your Star Wars, just follow the template. Like just do a follow.
That's what Battlestar Galactica was. It was literally a Star Wars ripoff.
Yes, but we could use a good Star Wars ripoff.
Yes,
the villains were cool though. It had good villains.
You know what? I'm less excited about this than I am about Island in the Stars. I'm looking forward to that.
I think this is probably going to go. This is probably not going to go well, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, we're just telling you about it, giving our opinion, and we'll talk more about it when it actually gets released.
Didn't they run into an angel in one episode of Battlestar Galactica?
Something like.
Or someone we thought, and he was played by what's his name, the actor from the Avengers, I think. The television series, right?
Yeah.
And he was also the voice of the head Cylon, the Cylon leader. So I thought that was interesting. Was there like a biblical almost frame there? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. Okay. Last article.
You excited?
Are you excited?
I never actually had an Atari computer.
You know why? Because you had a Commodore 64.
Yeah, I came to it late in the game, and I didn't really have.
That was the forgotten console war, computer war, Commodore versus Atari.
Yeah, and I came to it late, and it was my mother pushing for it more than I was. Yeah. I enjoyed my Atari 2600 for games. She's like, no, you need a real computer for typing and doing schoolwork and blah, 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 blah. And that's why she went with a Commodore. And I was like, oh, you can still play games on this. Okay, great. And I started getting all the games for Commodore 64. But that was, somebody told my mom that Commodore 64 at the time was what she should get. It was the best at the time. Apparently, this Atari 400 was better.
Let me read the article, then I'll explain. I'm going to give you a little history lesson on this, but retro video game fans have another mini console to contend with, this time a recreation of the Atari 400. Playleon and Retro Games Limited have announced a $119, 1999 400 Mini, a scaled-down recreation of the 8-bit Atari 400, which was first... What?
8-bit! Oh my gosh!
That, you don't understand, that was a big deal. The NES was technically 8-bit.
I know.
So let's not be making fun of this Atari computer, which was first launched in 1979. The 400 Mini, due out on March 28th, 2024, includes 25 Atari games pre-installed, each selected from a carousel that includes the likes of Berserk.
There you go. I was just talking about that.
I heard that somewhere. I was like, why does that sound familiar? Did I read that somewhere that it was on? It was.
Yep.
Lee, which I guess is a Bruce Lee video game. Millipede, that's the follow-up to Centipede.
Yep.
Miner 2049er.
I love that game. I had it on the Commodore.
On the Commodore, yeah. Mule is going to be on this. Do you remember Mule at all?
My buddy Otto had that. I had a hard time getting into that.
It's a weird. It almost has a board game aesthetic. It's like a Monopoly style game in a way, but it's like about you're like space and you're using wheels. I don't know. And Star Raiders 2, you can save and resume your game at any time and rewind by up to 30 seconds. The 400 Mini comes with an updated CX40 joystick, dubbed the C-Stick, which features an additional 7 functions and USB, making compatible with a wide range of consoles. Can I use the CX stick on my Switch? That'd be funny.
I know, right?
If I'm playing Mario Wonder with this old Atari controller. Here are the key features, courtesy of Playleon. Half-size version of the distinctly styled Atari 400, emulating the whole 8-bit Atari range from the 400 to the 800 XL, and the Atari 5200 home console. Also included is a recreation of the classic Atari CX4 joystick. I already mentioned that. The ability for players to slide load their own games via USB stick with support for cartridges, disc, and cassette ROMs. That's the big deal for me.
Yeah.
If I can use ROMs, and I think you can find these over at Atari Age, and before people start screaming piracy to me, no one's making money off of this stuff anymore. Leave it alone,
right.
all right?
Yeah, exactly.
If I want to play some old Infocom games, let me. I bought a bunch of them back then. I think I bought a complete disc of Infocom games. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, this is... so remember the Infocom games were on the Atari computer as well.
I want everybody that is watching right now, look at that picture and imagine trying to type on that bastard.
This is a 400. They got better later on.
Yeah.
That is not even a real keyboard. That's some weird touchpad thing, right?
Yep. Yeah.
See, back then they knew touchpads were bad, and they gave up on them, and now we have them back. Later, Atari computers had an actual built-in keyboard, much like the Commodore did.
Right.
Okay, the 800, the one I had a built-in keyboard. It's
neat. What we still have to this day, that sort of keyboard. That, and the worst would be like one of the keys that you would use the most, the connector underneath it would fail. And so you couldn't type a D anymore or something like that?
Yeah, because they weren't external keyboards where you just go out and buy yourself a new keyboard. Why do I have a suspicion that that's something Apple did where, like, the PCs were having external keyboards and Apple would say, no, it has to be built in. It's like, but Steve, they're...
Exactly.
Like the other one, Steve was yelling at there's Steve. We need to just be able to hook up a keyboard. No! But no, even back then, yeah, the keyboards were built in. To be fair, there's something to be said for having everything right out of the box.
True.
You did have to buy an external floppy drive for this thing.
Yep.
In fact, I think the Commodore 64 discs were they the hard blue discs or were they the larger floppies?
I want to say larger floppy
because I had larger floppies for this.
I think this predates the smaller ones.
Yeah, this was the first Atari computer. You can also buy the C6 separately. I might pick one of these up. I am very tempted because this was my introduction to video games.
Look at those control jacks there. That's where you
plug it right in the front.
Yep.
Now these are USB sticks. I wonder if you can put other USB controllers in here.
Look at that, player 1, player 2, player 3, exactly. Player 4.
In the old days, you would press the button and lid, and you would put the cartridge inside. It came with cartridges.
Yep.
This is the cover.
I remember that cover, yeah.
This is an old Electronic Arts. Electronic Arts existed back then. They were a big supporter of the Atari computers and Commodore 64. Mule was released by them. This apparently is the 800 version of Missile Command.
Yep.
Looks pretty good. Looks actually better than what you would get on the 2600. The closest Atari console, I think, to this is the Atari 5200 console, which I think that you can play the games on this as well. It will run 5200. There's Boulder Dash. You ever played that?
That one. No, okay. I don't know that one.
Millipede,
yeah.
I'm trying to pick games that were actually going to be on this thing. But like I said, you can load your own ROMs onto this.
Wow.
And this could open up a lot of doors. There is a version of Donkey Kong on the Atari computer I want to check out.
Wow.
So I may end up picking one of these.
If it's anything like the one, oh gosh, who was the company that put it out for the Atari 2600? Was that, it wasn't Activision, was it? Who was it?
Well, I don't know. It was either Activision or Atari in the 2600. That was
it wasn't Atari, so it must have been Activision. It was terrible. It was just terrible. I mean, it was fun enough, but it was very disappointing for someone who wanted that same game that they played in the arcade. Yeah.
Interesting trivia for Boomer here. You know what? My first video game, my dad got it for me, I think, as a birthday present. It was for the Atari 800 computer. Guess which game?
Combat.
Nope. Dig Dug.
Dig Dug.
The classic Namco arcade game. Pac-Man gets more attention, but Dig Dug was another big Namco game from back in the day.
Nice.
I had Dig Dug. I had Deluxe Invaders, which I realized was short for Deluxe Space Invaders. It was actually a Space Invaders game. It wasn't some knockoff.
Interesting.
I had Demon's Attack. I think that was an Activision game, which was their own take on Space Invaders, where the things would fly down at you and jump all over the place. It was pretty impressive. I had Pitfall for the Atari 800 computer.
I did like Pitfall, yes.
I had some decent games for the time. I had the Return of the Jedi game, Destroy the Death Star, where you would be the little Millennium Falcon. Did you have that on Commodore? Or maybe you played it over a friend's house, maybe?
I played it at a friend's house,
yes. And my brother would get a lot of the floppy disk games. Now, I have to tell you, the floppy disk, I was a kid at the time. I was like 4 or 5 or 5 or 6. So, like, the floppy drive was like this big forbidden thing I couldn't touch.
Yeah.
Because I would want to play the floppy games, but I think I was afraid that I would mess something up and get into trouble. Because you had to like load them up. It was this real complicated where you had to plug it in. Then you'd have to. Oh, you know what it is? There were key commands to load them. I didn't know what those key commands were.
Oh, right.
The cartridges you could just put in and they would play, but the other stuff was more fancy. There was a cassette tape thing, and you could play games on cassette, like audio cassette. They were audio cassettes, but they had games on them. And I remember there was one called Crush, Crumble, and Chomp, which I guess was like their Godzilla-style game where you could play as a monster and destroy a city. I had one of those cassette games. It was called Preppy, which was basically a knockoff of Frogger, but I actually liked it better than Frogger. I guess you were playing a preppy guy instead of a frog trying to get across things. But no, I mean, people see it as primitive now, but at the time, this was state-of-the-art. You were getting closer to the arcade games with this system than you were on anything else at the time. This was not our... Before this, we had the Magnavox Odyssey. We didn't have an Atari 2600, but we did get the Atari computer later on. And this was my main mode of gaming for a long time. I want to say almost up to the NES, because we did get an IBM PC compatible computer, but it was junk. The games would never run right on it. And after that, we got an NES. But this was really my first introduction to games. So I may have to pick this up for nostalgia purposes, especially if I can load ROMs onto this thing with no trouble. I want Mountain King. You know Mountain King?
I do not. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
we'll talk about that some other day. Just realized it's Martin Luther King Day tomorrow. Yes, it is.
Yep.
And remember to agree with this message about celebrating people not on how they look, but on the content of their character.
Yep.
Which is almost the opposite of what certain people say today. Oh my goodness, Pitfall! I love that. Pitfall actually worked well in the 2600 too, but it was also out on this.
In my mind, Pitfall was Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones. That's how I saw it too. I was a kid too, and I was like,
yep.
"That's Indiana Jones."
Yep.
Because every kid wants to be Indiana Jones after you first see Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's what you want to see.
Right.
But this was a cool little I'm gonna pick this up. I think I want to relive this. I didn't get their Amiga clone console. This company put out an Amiga clone console. I didn't get that one. To be fair, I never owned an Amiga, so I don't have quite the nostalgia factor.
Right.
But this, I think I do. I want to see if it ticks those buttons and see if it rings any bells. We'll see. I think I will pick this up. Yeah. And I'll let you know how it holds up. But apparently there are people out there that have been making original games from this in the community. They just, in their spare time, they develop their own games for it.
Wow.
And they do improve versions of older games. Like there's an even better version of Donkey Kong they made. But they use it, make them using this hardware. This to make it
That's
work
amazing.
with this hardware.
That is freaking amazing.
So I may pick one of these up. We'll see. There was an old computer in my basement that could use floppy disks. I wondered what the heck it was as a kid. It might have been this, or it might have been the Commodore 64. It would have been one of those, because those were the two big computers at the time. I think Commodore eventually came out with the Commodore
Although,
Amiga.
Even IBM started putting out like 8088s and stuff like that took floppies,
Oh, sure.
so it could have been anything.
Yeah, the funny thing about gaming is we see gaming as something that it didn't start with the NES. It was around before then. You had this system. Later on, the Atari ST came out. Even the Mac. Mac got away from games later on, which was stupid. I blame Steve Jobs for that. But even the beginning, the Apple Macintoshes you could play games on too in the beginning too. But yeah, so there's a lot of lost media out there, but maybe this will help preserve it. I think I might be picking this up. And look at that aesthetic. Do you love that dark beige plastic?
I was going to ask you about that. Was that the color it originally came in? Because honestly, I looked at that and I'm like, this is an old computer that has sat in somebody's house.
The sun, or lights, or less
for
lights,
for like 20 years with a smoker in the house, and that's that's the color it ended up. If you were to like take it and put peroxide on it and whatnot, maybe you'd lighten it up or something.
I don't know why it's this color. I can tell you that I had the Super Nintendo. The original models of Super Nintendo were this gray color, and then over time they would turn into this weird, like almost like this color, this weird discolored. It's because there was a flame retardant chemical in the plastic mix.
Really?
I guess to help in case there was a fire or short, it would prevent maybe from catching fire. But unfortunately, it would turn the plastic this weird color over time when exposed to light. Wow. And it would become this weird color. Now, but these come out of the box this way, so I don't know if this is just them getting, this is just maybe that weird plastic already set up. Maybe this was also supposed to
it's not going to darken up over time, so we're going to start it out dark.
It had a similar look to this. That's why I'm wondering if this has something to do with it. Maybe this was a safety precaution, because it looks hideous.
Well, no, it's very clear they're going for that 70s, style, so they're going to get, all the points. And you know what? Browns and beige, kind of big in the 70s. Everything was
maybe this was the selection. So, you're right.
Yeah, so
because
it doesn't seem out of place.
Because the Atari 2600 had a cool look. It was like that faux wood paneling, right? That was a cool look.
Yes,
to it.
It did.
This not as much, but and the Atari 800 XL had a silver finish that looked neater, but that had more of a futuristic look. And I don't know. This I'm gonna pick this up, and I'll give a verdict when I do, see if it holds up over time. This is what you had the game on back in the day, and you liked it.
Yeah, and I really, really did.
You have to understand. The trouble is, though, the arcade was always better.
Right.
This was better than what you got on other consoles, but it wasn't quite up there. The arcade.
You know what's funny though?
Yeah. What?
At the time, you're right. the arcade was always better.
This was getting closer.
There was a point at where the computer games got to be as good as the arcade, and now they have surpassed.
Yeah, I think it was the subsequent the computers that came after this, the Commodore Amiga and the Atari ST computer, which was a 16-bit computer. Then you're getting closer to what you'd see in the arcade look and stuff. And I don't know. I'm thinking about getting that Amiga, but of course the controller for that looks horrible. But this has an old school Atari type controller, so I'll pick it up. I'll let you know how it is. But comes out in March, so keeping your fingers crossed on this. This might be something special.
Yep.
All right.
In 20 minutes, we're going to want to get over to deleted scenes. I guess you'll do a Geeky Geezers raid. Make sure you say Geeky Geezers raid in the chat over there when you get there.
He's got some good guests on tonight. Pacific 414.
Got Baron Orman Teague and Pacific 414 and Cash Money 007. It should be a good one, so make sure you go and show them some love over there. And then do the same on Tuesday at 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern, when Boomer and myself and Netter of Netter's Network will be joining Deleted Scenes for Sparkwood 21, the next episode of Season 2 of Twin Peaks. Anything going on Wednesdays?
Nothing this Wednesday. Birdman's still recovering. He's feeling much better, though.
Good. Glad to hear it. Thursday, Netter's Network. Netter, who's your guest on Thursday?
Disney Sheepherder.
Disney Sheepherder. We're going to hear the story about the tragic story of what happened to him after his last appearance on our channel, and we've been looking forward to that.
Okay.
And then Friday, last call. You and me and Netter, and I don't know what we'll be talking about. We'll have to figure that out over the course of this week. But it will be fun. We will hang out together, and we will have drinks.
That'll should be fun this Friday, since it was kind of the downer last week.
Since I was really ranty on Friday,
We'll something more fun, though. But I don't know. We'll have to think of something. Yeah.
9 Central, 10 Eastern on Friday. Saturday, over to Netter's Network, Retro Cinema for The Dark Crystal. 9 Central, 10 Eastern.
Remember the Dark Crystal.
Yeah. Then back to Sunday afternoon, Jedi Bill and Deleted Scenes for Western Cinema Presents, and later in the evening, Unscripted. And that is the Week in Review. I am out of here.
Goodbye, everyone. Y'all have a good night.
Take care.